framework for.
You know, they're trying to get that Panama Canal back. I'm sure y'all been following that too.
And also a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, China was leveraging the mess out of it. I mean, that's smart. You know, hey,
U.S. troops.
Yeah.
Sherman, it's whole U.S. space there.
Let me
as well as the naval station and airfield jointly with Panama to secure the Panama Canal. From
yeah, we live now. Okay, good.
So we're taking back the canal. Too much influence, and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir. And so we had a very successful trip. The president, sends his regards, very complimentary of the U.S. He's a great ally, and I think they want the communist Chinese out. And with our troops, they're partnering with their forces. We've got a chance to push them all the way out, sir.
We've moved a lot of troops to Panama and filled up some areas that we used to have. We didn't have any longer, but we have them now. And it's in very good control.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Very good. So many countries to talk to. It's incredible. I'm not sure we get enough time in the day to talk to all these countries because they want to talk and they want to talk now. And they have come with offers that they never, ever would have come with. But for the moves that the president has made, demanding that people treat the United States with respect. We're getting the respect we deserve now. And I think you're going to see historic deals one after the other. And then I'm very excited that within a week and a half, we're going to start with the gold card and the Trump card is coming out. And we're
they're going to roll out that gold Trump card where they're going to make either pay to come in the country. At least they're going to try. I know Congress is going to fight them on that one too. Or at least attempt to.
On campuses?
Well, certain parts, that's not all of it. Some Democrats support it too, I think.
And some we canceled and some we put on hold, waiting for that. While we do an investigation. What my responsibilities are and having education with local states, we're meeting and talking with governors. I was with this week, all 15 commissioners of education around the country, and because we also want to provide them the tools and best practices as education does from the back of the states, making great progress, great response from the states, and great progress.
400 million from Colombia, 8 billion from Harvard. Can you imagine the money we pay Harvard? They have a $60 billion fund and we're giving them $8 billion. And we're trying to figure that out. And then they hire de Blasio, the worst mayor.
So he's saying that we were giving Harvard $8 billion a year. I need to go pull that data and see what that was. That would depend. I mean, a lot of these schools just get eaten, boy. They've been eaten.
It's not Harvard. It's not. So,
they sure do.
Yeah, man. That's why these people up, man. People up and all like, bro, all this money be going to everybody except people who really, you know, and they might like, man, where it went. I've been talking about this forever, guys. Y'all remember we had an old conversation about, you know, quality of life. Like people ain't seeing their money working for them. You know, they areas to look like dilapidated. Like, dude, what's going on? All the taxpayer money going, bridges raggedy. You know,
exactly. See, you can pay off the student loans if you can just get them $8 billion.
It's crazy, man. So I see why people are all up and on. So Trump speaking live now, guys. Anybody might be coming in on the YouTube side of things. We're just doing a quick little live to kind of bring some a little bit more analysis to, you know, the powerful move that we had yesterday in the stock market. Of course, it surged over 10%. Pretty sure most of you guys saw it just like I did, and everybody else did. It was crazy, right? Something out of a out of a dystopian movie. But nonetheless, here we are back at it today, trying to figure out, you know, where's the market going to land? You know, given now that we got a few more data points about how the tariff war is going to go. So we're just, you know, again, doing a live stream to speak to that a little bit. Anybody want to join, you're welcome to. The link will be down in the description. We will vet everybody before they come in, of course, so we don't get our live streams fast like we did before. So again, thank y'all for tuning in, and you know, like, share, subscribe if you're new to the channel. So right now we're listening to Trump speak live now, him and his cabinet, considering, you know, the latest moves they've made. on tariffs. Of course, they got that tax bill getting ready to come due. Senate is trying to vote on that. That's another big piece of the puzzle. Post the last PR that we had, conflict resolution that they did in the Congress for the budget. So, you know, that's another catalyst, if you will, come in terms of what that will look like for the tax incentives, or some people may not be so much. So it depends on their situation, but it's a major part of their economic, you know, wheelhouse, at least within their agenda. Right. So again,
To go to Congress.
so now again, most of this cabinet is speaking. You know, he had said Scott Lutnick, many of those guys, because they're the basic, you know, the major power players at this point, because a lot of the policies are being derived around their agency, all of the military, DOD, and PHEC, and then Scott Lutnick being our Secretary of Commerce in terms of all this tariff trade and what stuff like that. Of course, he's sitting at the top of that. Him and Peter Navarro and many others, right? So yeah, just a lot going on, guys. But again, now they speak about the whole Panama Canal thing. Y'all know he went to do a reneging on the Panama Canal deal. They're gonna take it back because China was using it more than, you know, America was. So they don't like that, and that's a whole other can of worms in itself. But y'all know how this stuff go again. You know, so I don't know if y'all remember what happened with Panama Canal. You know, America sold it to Panama for $1. Yeah, that loan been denied. Now we're gonna loan denied.
Denied.
But they want to come get it back, you know, because they want to be able to control the commerce coming in and out of this area of the hemisphere, where China should not be leveraging it more than American is, and we built it literally, because, you know, Americans built it, you know. Yeah, you know, local labor too, but it was American engineers, core, the engineer core went down there and they literally built it, and a lot of Americans, you know, died building it. But you know, you're trying to build the world up. Sometimes, you know, you have those sacrifices, and whether it's good, bad, you're indifferent to it. If they feel like they need to leverage it now more than anywhere or anybody, then it's gonna happen, you know. So I think that's one way to look at it. You know, again, separate yourself from the politics of things, look at things objectively. As an investor or a power player, you'll realize a lot of the decisions you'll make going forward will not be hindered by, you know, by echo chamber, you know, biases, if you will. You got to be the person to make your own decisions. For feed, clothing, shelters, your household should be tantamount to you making decisions based on how the money is moving, where the money is going, you know. Things of that nature. All right. So always try to separate yourself from the you know, the messenger and deal with the message.
Quick question, man. How you feeling about the China subsidies, or the meeting that they're gonna have? You feel like
hold on, Ro, one second. Let me cut
being attacked.
cut Trump them down a little bit back now. I got it up loud.
Bombs or by anything else, and letting people build.
I had to I cut my monitors down, exposed my TV and off of it. No, go ahead again.
How you feeling about the meeting that China's gonna have? Because it seems like all things are leading to them subsidizing these companies in China. You feel like that might be a small play, short-term play on something like Alibaba or JD or some of these Chinese companies, just like a short.
Because they did it recently. Remember, they did it about a couple months ago, and
right.
It was a good little spark, and they called, you know, off the back of the deep sea thing, because that was just already in itself revolutionary for their markets, right? The whole deep sea thing, because in their mind that was an active form of what? Economic warfare, even against us, because it took, you know, an already established so-called infrastructure in terms of the, you know, the AI model. They reverse engineered and did it even better. Oh man, the market is pumped. I don't know if y'all saw that there. We squeezing.
Oh shit! Yeah,
they didn't say something. You know, here we go again with this food. Now I don't know if it's gonna last, because y'all know all this stuff right now is so super volatile. You can't hang on it. I sold my puts at the right time. I got stopped off. You know, again, you make money going down, we make money going up. So now my swing call, or not my swing call, my dip buy calls, they running now. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Hang on. Let's see. Yeah, anyway, but no, to answer your question, bro, I think again, the fact that even though, because you know they floating the idea of doing what? Delisting China stocks again.
Correct.
Now that's a bipartisan mandate that Democrats and Republicans have been pushing for now going well over 7-8 years, right? So it ain't nothing new. What's going on over Andre in the building? We see him down in the YouTube side of things. Peace, power, profit to you, over. Again, I know you're probably shaking the room, but you're welcome to come on the planner too, over. I just throw that link out there. But I think what China's doing now, they're going to be forced to have to subsidize whether they want to or not now, only because now with the tariff war issue going, they're going to have to figure out how to fill that void from suppliers who may do a lot of wholesaling and drop shipping from China, like Alibaba, Temu, Shein. Man, over Chris was speaking about that earlier before he came on. Like a lot of the products that you get on Shein that was like $2 now, they're finna be what, $3.45 or $4 now.
Yeah, they they cutting out that is it called de minimis or something like that?
Yeah,
Those
the de minimis rule.
800.
Yep,
They ended that.
That was
And
one
they're
of the
gonna
things.
make it 20. It's either which one is highest, $25 or 30%. And now they boost it up again.
Yeah, exactly. You own it. You own it. So the de minimis rule was something that they had as a what they call good faith partnership with China way back in the day when they ran that deal with them.
Right.
And China just abused it. Again, hey, don't hurt the player, right? Don't hate don't hate the player, right? Hate the game. And they ran that play and they were just benefiting from it. So a lot of people who established the businesses, that was taking a lot of product wholesale product out of China, it was great. Right, it was great, because you got a chance to get those bulk deals, and they was passing that cost on, and they were just eating, and that's why we got flooded with a lot of import, i.e. from China, many others too. But again, it was smart. It was just a smart power move, in relation to being able to say, okay, we're going to keep you outfitted what you need and whatever. So now that things are the way they are, they're feeling like, okay, enough is enough. We're making this mental national interest, security interest play in a way where we even look at that as being problematic, where we're trying to renegotiate our position with them, because again, they have also been sitting on old trade policy for quite a while also being what, again, a major competitive person, So that's interesting, man. That in itself, that's very interesting, right? So I'm just, man, it just curious. That's who the Reverend Dollar B Green, ain't that over Andre, other hand over Chris? Let me see. Let me stop sharing, because we ain't gonna let everybody pop in, and let me cut that on.
Andre over.
That's Andre. I thought so. I know you changed the name. I want to make sure we get vet everybody before they come in. What's going on, Over? What's going on, Over Quiz? I see you in the building as well. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? What's going on?
Man, it's everything well, man. Just grinding here, trying to again make sense of all this volatility as always. What's going on, Over Andre? I think that the pot in the bill. He probably grind too. He'll open up when he can. But yeah, man. So this is what we've been
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Not to cut you off, I didn't realize you had said something, but peace to you, Chris and Emporium and everybody else. Just checking in.
What up, right?
Man, good to see you, man. Good to hear you, man. I know you grind as always. Again, coming from a businessman perspective, you're definitely a person who can speak to these things too, because again, you do a lot of international business with your businesses, and the idea of the tariff stick that Trump is willing now, it has this outreach. But again, people who know how to stick and move, they'll figure out how to way to, work this one way or the other. So definitely great to have your insight on the panel today. So definitely chime in anytime you can.
Yeah, well, for me, I was explaining this to my man yesterday. He was coming to me because the one thing at first, during this election cycle, I thought if he won, I thought legacy media would crumble, but they're doubling, tripling down on this goofy shit. And so I had to explain to him, listen, I just got back from London and I had to show him something. Each day in London, I spent $40 on the subway, right? So American dollars. So basically it was about 32 sterling pounds, which comes up to $40. And then you know what will happen the day after that? You will see the tariff added, because the bank ain't gonna pay the tariff. You gonna pay the tariff.
Right.
So
it's a clearing cost. They're gonna, yep.
right, they're gonna give you a tariff on that. And I was showing him that. And I was like, you think that? I said, no one talks about that. I said, so my man was like, and Chris can attest to this. My man was like, my man said to me, this other dude, random guy, he was looking at, once again, the legacy media, right? Telling him, oh, you're gonna pay more for your Nikes. And I'm
Yep.
like, I said, first of all, Vietnam already said they don't want no smoke. They said, listen, 0-0, right? So, and I
Yep. They
said to
zeroed
him,
it out.
and I said, what's funny is that I remember when Air Force Ones were $70. I said, did a tariff do that? Right? And I broke it down to him how Nike, I said, I had to show him something. I said, one thing I learned, I used to date, and me and Chris talked about this before. I used to date one of the daughters of the founding 3 members of Nike, right? And one thing I learned from the father, because he was one of the silent people that no one knows about, but he did the sourcing. And the one thing I learned from him was that, and Chris knows this, so if you see one Composite, you're going to see 10. If you see one Jordan 4, you're going to see 10. Why do they do that? One, wastage fabric. They don't have to pay for if they do that because they're just taking the same fabric. Number 2, whether it's the sneaker that everybody wants or whether it's the sneaker that nobody wants, it pretty much, if you average out the cost of production across the board, is $5, right? So think about this. If a Composite is $230, it costs them $5 to make, right? If you buy direct to consumer from them, all you're paying for is the marketing. You're literally paying for the marketing they use for you to buy the shoe. You understand what I'm saying? So then I said, so now let me show you something else, African Emporium, that a lot of people don't know. I know because I come from the manufacturing side and the buying side. They don't even let stores keystone their product, meaning if a Jordan retails for $220, they're selling it to the store for $135. You don't even get the chance to double the cost. Any other brand, you double. If I sell it to you for $75, that sneaker has to sell for $150. Nike don't even let you keystone, right?
Wow.
And so just imagine that. So that's why I tell people, y'all don't know what you're talking about. And the last thing I'll say is we are so silly. Yo, like Comedy Hype put up this post yesterday on YouTube talking about Dave Chappelle predicted the tariffs was gonna. Yo, you had black people on that post talking about, I want to wear Air Force Ones. I don't want to make them. I said, all of you are morons. All of you. Like, and I'm to the point where now you want to be broke? Go ahead and be broke, man. Like, like, what else can you do?
Yeah.
We were talking about that a little bit earlier too, about the idea that, in this point in the game, even if you follow at least some ideal of, money strategy minded, environments or discourse or whatever the case, there's no excuse now, in my opinion, again, post-COVID, where people have access to actionable intel to know how to stick, shake and move, so to speak. From the entrepreneurial side of things, the market side of things, it's just a wealth of a plethora of different, avenues and channels that they can now, go down to get the information they need. Because again, you spoke about it earlier, legacy media is not going to give you nuts and bolts. They're going to give you agenda. That's not how you eat. That's not how you eat. Again, what's the use of having all this intel available if you're going to have someone that has an agenda, basically tell you how to go fish? Like, no, that's how this stuff works. So very, very, potent point to establish that, man, because me and Chris are also talking about that in terms of being, how people front load a lot of this stuff anyway. If you was really even worried about tariffs, because he ran on the idea of tariffs too, so it wasn't nothing new.
Right.
But even with that, it's like, that's why smart people, they front load. Like, they just might upgrade the inventory ahead of the schedule. Regardless, they're already prepared. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things, man. Business savvy is just, man, it's look, I always tell you, either people, got it or they don't.
Yeah,
and,
pretty much.
You can acquire to become better, but you got to have an open, open mind, you know, and so I think that's very important. So you can definitely speak to that over Chris as well, man. If you got anything you want to add to that, you as well, my bro in here, he ran a business, right? So
Like
you guys got boots on the ground expertise.
yeah, like for next month, like I know the white cement forwards is dropping next month. I'm literally probably gonna buy bulk in those and sit on those. Guess what? Because they're gonna make a nice amount of pairs, but here's the thing. They already got a strategy in place. Nike has a strategy in place of not making more pairs of certain shoes. Because notice, if anybody noticed, they haven't really had any discounts, big discounts like they were doing last year.
Yeah.
Because they not really making no money like that.
Yeah.
Especially since they doing direct consumer now. I think that really changed the game. Remember when they pulled from Amazon, all those places?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can y'all speak to that too? And I don't mean to cut your bill, but definitely, man, the importance of that. What does that look like?
They went back to all big box retailers because they struggled that year so much.
Yeah.
They
John
had
Donahoe wanted to do all of that. And they couldn't really afford to do it at that time. That was not the time to do it. But homeboy came in and he's switching it back up. But right now it really don't matter because look at the stock price. You got too much competition in the market now. You got On, you got Hoka, you got Puma, you got New Balance. You got all these other companies. Yeah. Taking your running segment away. Now it's going into lifestyle. So all the Jordan heads and the new kids, guess where they going? They buying Asics. They buying New Balances. They buying all of these.
They're going straight retro.
Yeah. So, everybody going to be out for the OGs when the OGs drop. But outside of that, oh, no, we over here. We giving our money to New Balance now. We giving our money to Hoka and On. Which is, Hoka's owned by Decker. So, they gotta have a whole strategy to come out with this. Like, not only am I a Nike head, but I was a Nike investor. But guess what? I sold my shares. For what?
Yeah.
The company ain't doing nothing. They not.
Look at that move, man. Like how you gonna like, bro? Come on, and we talking about even with the COVID drop, right? Remember the COVID drop? We were very big on. This is why you might want to look at Nike, right? You were big on it. We talked about it in a lot of our lives. You was on over Andre a lot of times, and we were speaking about those different investment opportunities at that point. And again, Nike was sitting at around $50 and change a share, and then, bro, it doubled up. It doubled up actually. It went up over there, well over 200%. They ain't at 300. From 57 all the way up to rough around about low 170s. Like, bro, like, and short order time frame too. Short order time frame. Like you can make.
But that was stimulus money too. So.
Yep, people at home buying J, boy, with retro 13s all over Instagram during COVID. Well, it wasn't a Gucci person, retro 13. That's all I kept seeing in 11, them retro 11s. I was like, man, but joker loading up.
I'm like, shoot, man, it's easy, to get rid of this because this ain't y'all not doing it. Y'all not competing, bro. Outside of retros or OGs and collabs, you're not competing. You're getting your ass kicked, and you got to do something about that. So I ain't thinking as a consumer. Now I'm thinking business minded. Yeah, I'm dumping my shares. I'm done. I'm out of here. Now the stock at like 50 something now.
Let it go back. See, that's what I'm talking about. Let it come back down. Let them what they call do some whole new R&D and get ready for the next potential. See, that's why people don't understand the importance of why. And see, it's one thing again to be led by a lot of emotional data. Emotional headlines and not understanding the ideal of build, break, build, or boom and bust cycles as we know them to be. How to be able to buy low and actually sell high. When you have what they call a return to sender as a stock, when it goes into the heavens and comes back to a equilibrium place, or at least some kind of form of a good consolidation shelf. just what investing is all about. Now, keep in mind, Bill Ackman came out well in advance. Remember, he jumped on the Nike train.
Yep.
His little boost got it back up to around about $80-something, somewhere around the give or take when he came out.
Yeah.
He was buying up in around that area. Now he underwater. That's why he was crying and put that tweet out the other day. Now you know, see how see. He was talking in the book because he was feeling pain. That margin pain was hitting him a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, I know you got other stuff too, but I'm just saying the idea, the psychological, value that he added to a lot of people that follow him into that trade, right?
Yep.
And then the market pulled back. Now, of course, you can never account for a lot of stuff that happens when you got, administration making their own power moves. So we get it. That's just a part of the game. Again, risk management, right? Never invest more than you're willing to lose. Right. However, just kind of giving the idea that if you know a tariff war about to jump off, and the people who are getting hit hardest during the first wave of tariff were people like Nike and retail. Retail is the first sector you go to.
Yep. You remember Nike, but Nike was going down before the inauguration, though. It ain't been doing good at all since, like second quarter 24, first quarter.
This been about there's been a few years.
That's true. Yeah. Now, what would you say, if you don't mind me asking, what would you say outside of, like, what could they do? I mean, I feel like it's coming back, I guess, to its proper value, I guess, correction or whatever. What can they do outside of
it's definitely have a PE correction. So I mean,
like what would you say they can do in the interim? Or because the only thing I could think they can come up with is like betting on the Olympics.
That ain't gonna be enough. That's not gonna be enough. It's more internal. Like Andre can speak to that too, because when it comes to manufacturing and having creators and people who design, that's what they were lacking a lot too. They were lacking a lot of creativity.
Okay.
So you know what I realized, y'all? I'm gonna go deep. You know what I realized is what killing Nike in America is the same thing that built that. Okay, I'm gonna paint a picture for you. What's killing Nike in America? What's killing Nike in America is what a lot of our silly friends who think Biden and that. You know what's killing Nike in America? Globalism inside of America. The people you're letting into the country are not consumers.
Boom! I wish I had a bomb drop.
Well, yeah, that's cold right there.
Right. Right. Now I'm gonna show you something.
I told you about this too, bro. About we having this kind of silent invasion in the country right now. We're distorting a lot of our social ideologies and our spending and stuff like that. People don't, they're not from our era, as we would say. Right. Meaning, at a point where everybody, even other people who would not wear the stuff that we branded or we made cool, they go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you with them.
No. And so I'm gonna show you something, right? I'm gonna show you because it goes back to what I said earlier when I was talking to one of the three founders when I used to date his daughter. His name is Jack O'Bence. Do you know why Nike went to China? Because they had to pay for the athletes that they were using to endorse. So what Nike did was they looked at what Converse did with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson with the weapons. But look what they did what they did with the Converse weapon. It was an ambiguous shoe, meaning you understood purple and yellow was automatically Magic, just like you knew black and white or green and white was automatically Larry Bird, right? So I would give you a commercial and we sign you to an endorsement deal, right? But it's not your name on the shoe. What did they do with Michael? They gave him naming rights and he had an endorsement. So where now I have to pay this man. So what did they do after Michael blew up? Then you saw Anthony Hardaway, right? Then after Anthony Hardaway, you had the Sir Charles, right? And so what they did, once again, when you're buying from Nike, especially direct to consumer, you're paying for the athlete's contract that they're signing. This is why they went to China first, right? Because Reebok was already a Great Britain company. Adidas was already a German company, right? Nike was America, but in order to offset marketing costs and other things, I'm going to go to the place first, right? And he told me that when I used to date Corey, because he said, Dre, Corey was born in South Korea in a factory. That was his daughter's name that I used to date. Born in South Korea while he was sourcing the Air Trainer, the Bo Jackson shoe, right? So the point that I'm showing you is what's killing Nike is globalism. Right? Now, why did I say that? You're bringing in a bunch of third world people who could care less about that. They're more concerned with dominating other factors in this country. And then when you go to like so what happens is social media allowed the rest of the world, as far as in industrialized countries, to copy us. That's why if you go to Amsterdam now, it's more Nike than Adidas over there, right? Because they looked at our style via Instagram and via certain things. Oh, boom, same thing in London. Boom, same thing in Germany. It's like, yo, I want to dress like them. But the people that's coming over here don't give a fuck about dressing like you, right? They'd rather take over your apartment building.
Yeah, again, their dollar is not necessarily based upon, again, being appealing,
So what? Yeah. So think about this, and Chris will tell you this is what I was trying to explain to our sister Mo last week. But the one thing I've been trying to tell people is y'all don't really realize, like, I'm gonna do a show eventually. I'm waiting till like certain legislation get passed because our people are silly. But I'm gonna do a whole show called Biden is the worst president policy-wise, but Obama was the worst president theoretically. Because we're dealing with Bidenomics and all the fucked up shit he did as far as like just selling the country out. But you also have a harder time explaining it because now, because of Obama, I gotta get past your pronouns. I gotta get past black is beautiful, sister girl magic, and all this goofy shit that we could never get to business.
Yeah, we got caught up in a social analog type of environment where it took our mind and interest off the ball of growth, economic growth, that is, as a nation and also as individual sects of bodies of politics.
Right. And the last thing I'll say on that, right? The last thing I'll say on that is it'll frame it perfectly why I say that. Who in 5 years ago, you'd have never thought you'd have seen a chick with Persian rug eyelashes and a Seabiscuit wig talking to a black church telling poor black people why they need immigrants.
Come on, Jasmine.
This is why. This is why.
Jasmine.
And this is why Obama is the worst theoretically for opening the door to that bullshit.
He gave anybody the wrong people the right layup at a time when they gave people who were really the grassroots people who really stumped hard for him was those people who really need to be elevated. He gave them the boot and went right back to doing business as usual with these old selected, oh man, I ain't even got, y'all know what it is. It's horrible. It's so horrible now. And that whole branding, like if that was a business, if they was running a business, and see, this is why I love that y'all, this panel right here is a perfect panel. If you look at, and this is, y'all know I'm bipartisan. Again, I'm independent, so I can care less. I dump on both Democrats and Republicans. But if you were to look at the Democrat or the DNC as a business model, and they brand recognition they went through over the last 12 years, keep in mind, because they've held the presidency for the last 12 years out of the last 16. They've had it 12 years out of the last 16. And you say to yourself, look at their policies, look at their agendas, rate them in terms of a ROI. I'm open to hear y'all opinion. If you were to rate them as a business model or business plan or branding value, what would you guys say? I'm curious. Anybody?
I would say this. I'm gonna just say this so I can start eating. I'm gonna just say this. I won't answer it the way like you're asking, but I will say this. I was talking to somebody who's a stalwart within the DNC, and me and him was arguing about why I'm so hell-bent on taking black people out that party. And I say, you know why? Because unlike the rest of America who claim y'all didn't do nothing, I understand y'all did exactly what y'all wanted to do. USA shows you that for them, they can't no longer go to your church and your hood and say, well, the Republicans stopped us from doing this. You know why? if you could send 60 million for Gay Sesame Street, you don't have no excuse why you did not do anything for this country. If you're sending 20 million for DEI in Bulgaria, that means you passed exactly what you wanted. And that's the thing.
Direct agendas. You are so right. I mean, bro, I went through that stuff, and I kind of stay away from it because I know a lot of people have different social law perspective, but we saw the list, guys. We saw the money. That's why, see, people don't want to deal with the money because we're trained to always follow the money. The money is a direct correlation to people's admin agenda. You ain't spending money on anything, even for people that go to Vegas to blow on gambling. They go in there to gamble, right? So it's not like you're confused about why they're in Sin City. When they
this is why, but see, that's why African and poor. This is why they could. You can't say that they didn't do exactly what they wanted. See, for years we lived under. Oh, like even Mo said it to me and Chris the other week. They stopped Obama from doing it, and I was like, "Woman, they sent 60 million to an Islamic country for Gay Sesame Street, and you're telling me someone stopped them, right? It's almost like
hard.
That's why you can't have that conversation no more, because it's either politics or you don't. So, for example, to answer your question again, the first day of office, Biden reversed police. He reversed hold in Mexico. He reversed stop and frisk in Mexico. Why? Because he wanted it. Point blank, period.
Yeah, that was a gem from the gate. Yeah.
Right. So for them, they got exactly the ROI they wanted, except Trump won. Literally. They got exactly the ROI they wanted. They just didn't win. But they got over 20 million in this country. They sold out your job. They sold out your family. They got flags, and you know what I mean by that, hanging every goddamn where. And this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up. Yep. I was telling my
protesting in the country with wave it. Yeah, it's bad.
Right.
I know you already, bro. I already know. I already know, man. Them brothers gonna take it that day because we got
the last thing I'll say. The last thing I'll say is this, Emporium. Like I was,
bro. That's why I was shutting up.
I was telling my friend today, who's a psychiatrist. I was telling Christina. Chris knows Christina. I said, Christina, you know what I was thinking about? She said, what? I said, Christina, I was thinking about how last Easter you had Kurt Franklin, White House lawn, bring up Kamala Harris in front of a man dressed as a woman and Billy Porter while singing gospel fucking music.
Y'all remember that optics that day?
Do you understand how weird that is?
I watched that thing, and I was like, they got these people out there strategically placed in front for a reason.
Nah, that's for real. That's for real.
It was all this optics to show these are the safe, vetted people that we want to be, the likeness or image. Matter of fact, I look at everything now like the sports world now. NIA, name, image, likeness deal, right? This NIL, excuse me, right? This whole brand recognition. They taking this stuff to the next level, bro. Yeah. When I saw that mess too over Andre, I was like, man, look, this is why I cut the TV off so fast and move on to the next channel and say this is why they're gonna keep taking L's. Or the idea that they're tone deaf in the worst way. Right? They're tone deaf in the worst way because they refuse to see people where they are and deal with the 80 over the 20. They keep focusing on this, the 20% over the 80, and they think that they gaining ground because they were able to kind of usurp, the ideal in their mind, a few policy moves or power moves or plays that they ran, and people didn't really push back against it. But guess what? They failed to realize civics does also have this osmosis moment. When people get sick and tired, they will do enough of the needed research to gain more understanding why they need to be looking at things more objectively. And the pain of the purse is the first thing that forces you to do that. Meaning when your wallet flat, you'll start looking at stuff that you normally wouldn't look at. You start reading articles a little bit more. You start listening on YouTube and people speaking. Again, it's an osmosis thing, and I think that was really pinnacle in this perspective and this election, because people said, you know what, it got to be something better than this. This is just blatant at this point. They
Like,
the play that they ran, dog, they ran one of them Broadway. They ran one of them plays. Like they just put it all in your face. So man, I know I wasn't the only one, period. I mean, guys, bro, Brandon is everything beyond that of untorn in terms of the symbolic value, how they was moving. But then they played that it was running was totally different than what they were saying. I said, this is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, they just set everybody up. And again, good, bad, and different. Again, I'm down, I'm on the transactional mindset type of person. So I don't get caught up in the political fray. But this was horrible. I mean, that last 4 years was just
yeah.
Yeah. Y'all go ahead. I know I don't want to get caught in my little bag, but that was horrible.
Online.
People confuse the fact that you make money in the stock market as you being a somewhat of a champion or a cheerleader for the overall policies that were implemented. But we know all that stuff.
They be saying that. Especially the conscious brother, man. Why you participating, man? What the stock market gonna do for us? And I'm just like, what? What did you say?
Well, we play ball regardless. It don't matter who. We're gonna play ball regardless, whoever in office. But we realize ultimately in the end, the level of what we're dealing with, whether it's sustainable or not, that mess wasn't sustainable.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why the market's doing what it's doing now. It's because it was built on a house of cards.
Yep.
That ain't sound investing. Sending 60 million out the country for assessment, sending taxpayer money everywhere around the globe except into the pockets and coffers and infrastructure of the citizenry that you have, bro. You bound to have a revolt at some point.
Yeah.
Like you're playing on. And I know we use the 80-20% rule, but let's be honest, that was really like a 7 to 10% versus the 90. Stop playing.
January 6th. Yeah.
That election showed that. Again, good, bad, and different, whether you voted for again. It's not about a political perspective, but I'm just looking at the data. I'm a data guy. I'm looking at the data, bro. That was more 7-10. They were working on fringe ideology, policy, value, and thought that was gonna be enough to sway people. So that's why they gave you concerts and all kind of stuff like that during the campaign. Like people like, dude, they looking at their cupboard and their gas tank and saying, I can't do nothing with the Meg the Stallion right now, bro. I can't do nothing with no Quavo. What's this?
That shit was embarrassing, man.
It was horrible. Again, I know this ain't beat up on Democrat Day, but we just using this from a objective frame of reference to say this is why we look at the market the way we do. Through assets, through the stock equity aspect. To guys that on here, these guys are business owners. They know what they deal with, what they're dealing with when they travel, when they buying products and they wholesaling, distributing scenarios the way they are. It hits different when you got skin in the game. A lot of people just was caught up in the fray. It just felt good. It was in the feelings aspect of it as opposed to having actual, being stakeholders.
Right.
So people who are smart, who got money, they realize like, dude, this is unsustainable. Even they knew. That's why everybody was selling at the top. Like you couldn't make this stuff up. Like people knew that it was time for a reset because that policy was just unsustainable. It was built on a house of cards. So they can keep touting it as it was something great. Oh, the stock market's up. It was up. I learned to buy. Like, dude, Biden had nothing to do with the stock market. No more than the idea of the optics that. Because here's why I'm saying it that way. Don't get it twisted, guys. I know people gonna come from in the comment probably. What I mean by that is a lot of the budgets that were implemented under him. We can go back and pull up every act that he implemented that was a budget initiative, right? If you look at tangibly where that money went and let me repeat that, where that money was supposed to go back and look at the track record and see where those things are actually implemented into the projects that they was needed. They built a total of 6 to 8 charging stations off of $60 billion or some great, I forgot what it was, like 50 billion, something like that. They built a total of it was 8 billion. They built a total of 6 charging stations around the whole country that was supposed to outfit this electric car mandate. Where the rest of the money went? We can go down the list of those things. Well, guess what? We know where the money went now because we had somebody come in and do what they call forensic audit, but they're still doing it right now. And that's why everybody mad. That's on the other side of the aisle because they finna get exposed. They're getting exposed. They don't want that to come out. Turns out they were spending your money on everything else except you. That's why a lot of those implemented policies in terms of the CHIP Act. Intel got $54 billion of nepotism type money. They purposely gave it to Intel over NVIDIA or someone like that. Why?
I mean, wouldn't it be safe to say, just like in general, like to simplify it, whether you're on the left or the right side of the aisle, they're friends at the end of the day.
A lot of them are.
They're friends at the end of the day, like money don't, if you got money, you hanging with other people that got money. They're friends at the end of the day, in my opinion. That's why it's like, no matter which side you look at, whatever agenda get passed is what they wanted to get passed. And they're gonna soothe you or band-aid whatever cuts and bruises that the community that are hurting, give them a little bit to keep them quiet, not to get them full, but just to keep them quiet. Because we running a whole different, the bigger game is wealth. Because at the end of the day, how you gonna, I mean, like, how you getting votes if you ain't collecting those checks, those donations?
Well, here's the thing, even with that, and that's a good point. Well, we already know at this point in the game, the whole one vote, I forgot how the slogan goes, like one vote, one matter, one count, whatever. We know that's no longer relevant anymore now. Why? Because again, the whole lobby game in DC is next level.
Let me say this. Let me say this.
They're
Let me say
buying
this.
they buying elections. I mean, at the most tangible level now.
Let me say this real quick. One thing we have to listen. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, were they all friends and were they the same, I would say yes. At this point in the game, one side has done so much nefarious shit that you gotta the reason why I say they're not the same, right? You know why you know they're not the same? Because you got one faction literally fighting for a man to beat up a woman in a goddamn sport before they agree upon tax cuts for everybody. And that shows you that there is a literal, there's a line right down the middle. I think as I've matured in the marketplace from gold to stocks, the one thing I learned is that the older you get, this is a term in psychology, the older you get, the more conservative you get. And the one thing you start to understand is they are literally what we call them. They are the radical left. And when you look at their policies, right, from the CHIP Act to the Green New Deal to, once again, 60 million for Sesame Street, you understand if you look at it from a bird's eye view, it's like watching G.I. Joe. It's like you got the pro-Americans, the Go Joes versus the shadow government. Just like, I'm going to put black women on CNN so they could talk bad about the United States for every other country. Do you understand that when Zelensky came to the White House to show his ass, I was fighting with gay black men on Twitter to stand with Zelensky? And I said, so you an autistic gay nerd. You a gay autistic Urkel. And you talking about you stand with a man that will beat your ass if you was in his country. Right? These people are nuts. I'm telling you. They are again, nuts.
And it's more of what I say this again, because people, if the saying goes, people living their truth and this, that, and the third, I say this here. At the moment where it becomes a point where you can't feed, clothe, and shelter yourself off of that truth, then it may be time to kind of go back to the drawing board. Again, running off this 10% of the 90 or the 20 out of the 80% rule, to me, again, my opinion was political suicide, for lack of a better way of putting that out there. But y'all get it. It was bound to fail. Why? Because at the end of the day, when people look at the tangible baseline of their books, when people balancing their budgets and looking at this stuff, and they say, well, okay, we came out of record inflation based upon deficit spending that was constantly going up and up. They never was able to balance the budget. We kept having these CR, these conflict resolutions, kicking the can down the road, and it just went up more and more every time they put forth a bill. They tack on more money before they can turn around and grift off of it. We know that's what they do, the grifting off of with the CRs. That's why they got comfortable doing it. Don't want to balance the budget because it's easy for them to siphon money off because they know people not really concerned about itemized budget initiatives that come out of a real budget analysis, right? When you itemize everything, conflict resolution money gets stuffed into it at the last minute because of bad negotiations, and people never figure out where that money is going to go. So it's basically a way to get more out your squeeze more out the taxpayers, pulling money out the future into the now, so they could turn around and grift off of it later, meaning the politicians. This is how they become millionaires overnight. They come from making $175,000, $200,000 a year. 2 years later, they work 9 million, 10 million. They're on their way. And ain't nowhere in the world it's just on stocks alone. So again, the system in itself is just so ratchet and raggedy at this point in the game. It's like people know that they're double dipping and stealing at this point. We're at a pinnacle point, or a zenith. I was saying the other day on the live that we just hit a pinnacle point where we can no longer afford to give them that much of grace to purposely mess up in our face at this point in the game. It's like it's fourth quarter at this point, right? We down, meaning the citizenry is down big time. Guess who winning though? Guess who keep draining buckets on everybody though? Wall Street. Wall Street ain't missing no meals, right? Wall Street ain't skipping no meals. And they got it so good, they can throw the whole temper tantrum and try to force policy changes in the middle of the race. Like, where they do that at? So we understand that. Again, those who participate in the markets, those who have other investments as well, we understand how the game works. Again, it's always a liquidity grab. It's follow the money, hands down, always follow the money. Don't let the politics sway you from being the type of person who's very conscious about how you look at, where the money is actually going, more so than what they say is going to go. That changes everything. That changes your whole mental framework going forward. So you won't be a fool.
I agree. I will say this, though. I will say this. The one thing that made me more cognizant of the bigger picture is once you study the policy behind the grift. Once you see the policy behind the grift, then you understand who's lying and who's telling the truth. I was talking to my friend about a week ago when he first did the whole Liberation Day thing, and my friend, he's trying to be like us now. He's trying to learn the nuance of the conversation. So I said, I'm gonna tell you something that I don't, I asked him, I said, do you know why he, meaning Trump, I said, you know why he first put the tariffs on Canada and Mexico? And he was like, no, not really. He was like, maybe because of the illegal migration. I said, yes and no. I said, let me show you something. And it shows you that he was thinking about this ever since he lost that election. I was like, yo, I said, let me show you something. He renegotiated the North American Free Trade Act. He renegotiated NAFTA and brought a lot of jobs back to the United States for the 4 years, especially the last 2 out of the 4 until COVID hit, right? I said, boom. He put tariffs on China, and China had to honor it at that moment. I said, but look what Biden and his son did. And this is not conspiracy. This is what it is. If you look it up, Biden never removed the initial tariffs on China with the cars and the cheap ass goods. But you know what Biden, but now here's why he did what he did when he first got into office. You know what Biden and his son did do when his son was going back and forth to China? He said, why don't you build in Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why won't you build in Mexico? And what did they do? They shipped the cars through Mexico under NAFTA. So they would not what? Get tariff. Now, why am I saying this? I had to explain to Rockmar. I said 2 things happened as soon as Biden, 3 things happened as soon as Biden got into office concurrently. He was like, what's that? I said, massive illegal immigration, right? I said, 2, the loss of the auto industry because of that, of the NAFTA, and 3, the fentanyl crisis. I said, you don't think if China has the factories making fentanyl in China, you don't the fentanyl factories in Mexico when they were shipping the cars? You don't think they were just importing the fentanyl in the trunk of the
It was
fucking
coming right
cars?
on the container ships all through Mexico.
And I said, this is why he didn't tell the American public this, but this is why he said to Scheinbaum, nah, you're going to stop that. And this is why when the tea leaf said he was going to win, right? Think about it. If Sean, I forgot his name, I think it's Fallon, something like that. If the dude who's the head of the Teamsters Auto Worker Union said, so the whole time was like, oh no, we Biden, we Biden. Then last week goes on the news and say, this man saved the auto industry. Because he did, right? Because that's why we have to learn policy so no one can tell you, he gave us a black judge. That don't mean shit. This man's put fentanyl in your daughter's hand.
And flooded your whole community with people that diluted your work value.
There you go. So I'll land on that.
See, this is why, again, when people don't look at things objectively, removing the emotion away, and you have to think like a businessman, as again, Robert Kiyosaki, Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
That's, you have to think. The operative word in this, think. Not feel, but think to grow rich. Because again, you dealing with, again, people who have no connection to what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. There's surveys and all these Pew this and that, man, that stuff is fringe because it only surveys a certain set that, matter of fact, it's a direct set. They're not going to hit every average American and asking these questions. They're getting the results they want because they're surveying people who already have a bias in most cases. So you say, well, how do I get real data? You got to be the type of person who's conscious on number one, checking the pulse of the people around you, their wants, their needs. You look at, because we always say, again, follow the money. One of the greatest ways to do that is by going through the markets and looking at how markets react in terms of commodity side of things. If it's interest rates, if it's the bond market, again, we're talking about the real market. You have to be able to be savvy in a multiplicity of different ways of venues to look at how all this stuff is coming together. Again, it's the same goal. They say, do as I say, not as I do. They're doing something totally different while you're under the auspices that you're supposed to be doing what they say, which is completely false in terms of the grand scheme of how money moves. All these so-called enrichment programs and empowerment plays that they had in mind to do, that was supposed to, again, build up community on the federal level and also these states and whatever. It was just horrible watching people try to defend the foolishness that was going on. And I'm sitting there watching stuff like, okay, I know people got to be seeing this here. I know people got to be knowing that they just running this play and it's all in your face. It's ragged. It's rife with, fraud and like, how could you be? I mean, we sat there and watched the whole Burisma thing go down. It just made complete sense why Ukraine was getting all the money. It made sense why there was just no pushback from the Democrats. Again, there's no swag. Y'all know me again. I'm non-partisan. I don't have no, whatever.
Right.
It was so obvious that they were just running this stuff in people's face. And every other week, there was more money being found to go overseas when people were needing things here in the country. It's like, how's this possible? And then we had the worst things happen. We had the fire that happened in what? Hawaii. Devastating. What did the federal government do? Sat on their hands.
Yep.
But we kept seeing money going to who? Ukraine. People saw that. And like, okay.
What's funny about that African Emporium is that I tell people this all the time. And I know it sounds like I'm just kicking the DNC back in, even though I can't stand them. But, I was telling people, and the only reason why
be yourself, speak your truth.
The only reason why I'm bringing this up is because you was in the armed forces, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
And I keep telling people this by me once going to Moscow. I'm like, I said, listen, what does do you think Listen, what does he want with Ukraine? Nothing. What Biden did, once again, what a lot of people know this. People who go to Europe are in the know, and the people who don't. The nigga basically let Zelensky try to undercut his business with the natural gas business within, the EU takes a lot
Yeah.
of
Nord
Putin's,
Stream. Yeah.
right. And Biden was like, Biden or his son or whoever you want to say, I don't care. I don't care if you say Casper the Friendly Ghost in his cabinet. It was like, yeah, go ahead, Zelensky. Ain't nobody. What did you think he was gonna do? Do you know how minuscule Ukraine is to Russia? Like, do you think he really gives a fuck? Like, he didn't worry about Ukraine. Ukraine had their own business model with the whole natural gas and minerals, just like Russia did,
Wheat, they
right?
were pushing all the wheat, the Xeon gas for
Right.
semiconductors.
So it's like, yo, for him, it's like, yo, leave my shit alone, and I'll leave your shit alone. Do you think it's a happenstance that this motherfucker runs in almost 6 months after Biden takes office when Biden kind of like just turned a blind eye to it? Why do you think Biden was endowing him with all the fucking money? Was like, yo, I kind of like let you do it, right? So fuck it. Right? Because it had no business taking place. And once again, this is why policy has to be understood of what's really going on the geopolitical level, because then you'll understand, like, yo, none of this shit is by mistake. And so I say that to say this, to go back to my prior point, right, with the whole China and Mexico thing. If you ever been, one of the most beautiful cities it was in the world was Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada, right?
Yeah,
You know what else? You know what else is up there? They were called the GM, right? Remember the Vancouver Grizzlies, right?
Yeah.
The GM, General Motors, one of their headquarters was up there where they built cars, right? Once again, which is, if I'm mistaken, Stellantis now, something like that. Once
Yeah.
again, what happened to them? The fentanyl epidemic. That shit looked like Kensington, Philadelphia, the whole city. Why? Because they were flooding in the cars and they were flooding in the fentanyl. That's not a happenstance thing, right? Because you think about it, how does a place that was once the Silicon Valley of Canada and also an auto hub of Canada now look like a third world country?
Yeah.
You understand? It is a direct correlation.
It's unvetted immigration and
Yep.
bad trade policy.
Right, which gave you the fentanyl crisis. Now you got them white people dropping like flies up there, and I just wanted to show y'all that, like, that shit is direct. It's right in front of your face.
Yeah.
You know.
History's proven it. Again, when you have that kind of level of, and I said that about us again, not just make it again political, but it's hard not to speak to it without it feeling like that, because people who wear their political prowls on their sleeve, they already, again, they oversensitive anyway, regardless of how they feel about it. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day when it comes to the numbers, right? The numbers are the numbers, and the data is always going to back the value of whether, again, you're good fiduciary stewards of with budgets and analysis in a way where your citizenry was going to feel the benefit, or they're going to feel the pain of bad policy. And it's so much case study out there. I mean, at this point in the game, there's no way you can make a sound decision or a sound analysis that these things don't have 100% correlation to why you're having problems at this point in the game on a country level. Even if you break it down to province, state, or a city, it's hard. It's not hard now to be able to kind of put two and two together and see what the problems are. If you got an unproductive society, well, your economy is going to reflect that, right? If you have problems that are, as they say, a dime that's holding up a dollar, that whole theory underneath that means you're wasting time trying to, motivate a dime worth of interest where you got a whole dollar opportunity over here. You hemorrhaging cash. You're trying to fix something that don't want to get off the ground. You need to readjust, repurpose, and go another route. Well, we get the problem where we feel like we could just paper money over everything as opposed to fixing the internal problems with things. That's the same way inside of a business. Any business model, you realize that at some point you got to stop the hemorrhaging of the money and come at it from a different angle. That's what private sector do all the time. right? They do this stuff all the time. Again, it's not a coincidence that SpaceX doing all this crazy stuff in space and all this stuff, and NASA been at this stuff forever, and they were just regressing, and private sector came along and just like, dude, we did this, we were doing this stuff in our garage. Like, y'all get all this federal money, and y'all can barely get a rocket off the ground. Like, what's this? So at some point, to be able to adjust an audible any business model, any business plan, any investment thesis, whatever, it requires you having to be, you have to be an open-minded person to see things as they are, not as you want them to be, right? Unless you live on the island, you get to call the shots, you the boss, man, go hard, fam, go hard. But amongst other, people, and environments, you have to be, you have to understand what that looks like in terms of you want, especially you got children, because you want them to benefit from the labor that you're pouring forth today, and you lobby that through office of policy. Again, on that specific side of things, but also you got to be able to move your own feet too economically, because wherever there are pockets of I should say, bad policy or weakness in terms of governmental oversight or reach, you have to be able to fill that void yourself. You got to be able to fill that void yourself. You got to be confident enough to go and read these tea leaves too, and make your own moves. Right? There's no such thing as waiting on the government. Right?
That's a fact.
One thing you're not gonna hear us say. Go ahead.
You gotta now say you gotta read the tea leaves, because I'm gonna peel back one more layer for y'all, and then I'll shut up.
No,
when I was thinking about what you just said, you reminded me something I want all of y'all to think about, and y'all can comment after I shut up on this, right? Because it ties back to what I said about Vancouver and the car industry in Mexico and what over Emporium. You remember what happened in October of the election cycle, right? Remember the longshoremen said to Biden, you made us promises that you wouldn't keep. And if you don't do that, not only we gonna strike, we gonna tell a lot of the stuff that you made us. You know why? Because they kind of figured he was gonna lose anyway. He was gonna lose, right? So it's like, we gotta cover our ass, because we allowed a lot of this shit to come into this country. Under you, right? Because think about it. The leader of the union, his house in now, mind you, he's a longshoreman in Baltimore, but his house in South Jersey, they said was like an NFL player. They say he had Lambos. So what are you talking about? You need a 20% pay increase over 3 years. They got it though. They got it. Right? Remember, he represented both the East and the West Coast.
One guy.
Now, think about this.
I saw him all on the camera all the time.
Right. Now, think about this. He said, you made promises. Right? Now, why am I telling you all this? And tying it back to what I said earlier. What have you seen ever since they lost and Pam? Them niggas been knocking off fentanyl, heroin, and coke shipments on that shit left and right. And so you know what that mean? That mean that man from that union is playing both fucking like Emporium said. I'm going with it. All right, the money is to stop the shit now. The money was to let it in. The money now is saying you better not let that shit in.
Yeah,
you think he ain't tipping them off to that shit? Come on. I just wanted to say that.
No, you're on it. You're 100% on it. And this is why I say when people look at politics, again, a lot of people kind of hang around the base layer of it. They don't really understand all the different components and moving parts. Not that I know it all myself. Let me go on record and say that. But I will say this again, just from a place of knowing enough to know, how the money is kind of moving around, and how people kind of get get their hands kind of greased and this, that, and the third. Again, just case in point, we spoke about the longshoreman strike. That was a massive strike, right? For a lot of reasons. It was at a critical time because it was coming, it was in the fray of the election, the campaign. And then when it came out that he lost, meaning Biden lost the endorsement of Teamsters, it was over. because Teamsters has always been a Democratic engine. Well, late they've been very Democratic in terms of putting their endorsement behind a certain presidency, right? When they lost Teamsters, I was telling people at that point, like, bro, it's rap. Because that's the biggest union in the country, right? It's the one that carry a lot of political weight. Before you start getting to, like, say, the longshoremen, then you know, of course, you know, you can speak to the policemen and all that stuff, but we're talking about union, right? The union. Now, the implications of that, these are people who are boots on the ground who are doing a lot of the dirty work, right? They do a lot of the work that a lot of other people, you know, don't really understand, at least on the political side of things, right? Again, we talking about the ports authorities, right? The ports authority. The one out there in California, right? Down there in Savannah, Georgia. I know that port very well. In that area down station down there. Right? These ports in there are very important for many reasons that they Andre was speaking about in terms of, again, how they bring stuff in. Again, keep in mind, I always say this, under Oliver North, what they brought into the country under Oliver North. They brought whole keys in on the Oliver North. In the caskets of dead soldiers. Like you gotta understand, man, this is a business. I keep saying that, man. America is an LLC. Don't kid yourself. It's a pay for play.
My mic's working.
Man, what's going on? Okay, I see the bill. It's a pay for play environment here, man. So again, it's about grease and palms and things like that. So you're never gonna get the idea of the republic for what this country is supposed to be about. It's a stretch because it's too many people. Again, foreign interests, and this not me beating up on the immigrant value, but too many foreign interests have infiltrated America's politics, and it's more of a detriment at this point in the game because we haven't even got our own internal house in order. Our black-white initiatives and our other initiatives in terms of things that we haven't rectified from skeletons of old. Right, so it's easy to say, well, hey, you know, just kind of fall in and get in where you fit in. But again, as soon as somebody else come in here, they don't understand the politics here, and they just think that, you know, they're here to whatever, be a part of the land of the milk and honey. Like, bro, it's deeper than that. So when we're seeing, again, money that's supposed to be allocated to fix a lot of that old wrong, not just that issue, but again, the manufacturing and the other stuff, the people who've been paying into this system for stakeholders as taxpayers for you know, have got generations underneath the ground, it hit different, bro. It hit different. So we're not going to play the 20% rule when we got 80% problems that are affecting people who paid into this country and they not feel like they're reaping the benefits. They're going to have a problem with that. They're going to have a massive problem with that. As the saying goes, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool them all the time. You know, at some point, the information is going to catch up and people are going to wake up. And so, again, markets are just an extension of how people say one thing and do another, because Wall Street don't care about all that stuff at the end of the day. Right? They'll ride whoever dishing out the money, they'll ride the back of them people till the wheels fall off. Business people who understand how this stuff works too, they get it too. That's why you rarely see them brandishing their political prowess, unless it's somewhat kind of it's getting leaked out, or just, you know, it's one of the moments where you say, well, I like this because of that, but they never gonna reveal their entire hand, right? They understand how to play both sides. When you get one side that just says, you know, bump, scratch all that, we just gonna go hard body and do everything we want to do and all we want to do, that's when you're gonna run into a lot of these problems too. Right. So it's just interesting, guys. Again, I know it's odd when we sit here and we watch these things unfold in terms of the political landscape and how it affect markets, meaning not just our stock market, but again, commerce markets, overseas players, people like Nike. We spoke to them earlier. Of course, we kind of, you know, speaking in unison, that whole idea what that looks like. Yeah, go ahead, somebody.
Yeah, it's me, Chaos. Let me ask one question. Did Donald Trump really pause the truffles from Asia? Did he put a pause on that?
Not China. He paused everybody else's.
I said China.
Yeah, not China. Well, the issue with China. Oh, the China news that just the one that just came out. Meaning this idea of him thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
It's a soundbite because he was speaking earlier too. Good point. So it's a breaking news clip came out saying China is open to dialogue with the U.S. after President Trump base 125% tariff, right? Which we know is 145 because he changed this morning.
Yeah.
But it must be on the basis of mutual respect, equality per China's Commerce Ministry, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what that is. That's not him necessarily, giving or putting a pause on them. They're 100%, they're at 100% trade war at this point.
Okay.
Right? They're still at 100% trade war. That's what this is all about from the beginning anyway. It's like we see the underbosses, we see all the minions, we're going after the big dog. That's what this was all about. Because this is like, again, 2.0, right? This is Trump 2.0 tariff war, so to speak. So you'll know for sure, 100%, when that deal or the ideal of them going to the table is really, up for debate, you're gonna not only is you're gonna see a lot of the market do its thing because the market is waiting to get this stuff behind them so they can make an idea what this is going to look like, in terms of the commerce side of thing, right? The players. So everything you hear in between is just noise until you get that actual headline that says that, okay, the commerce minister is sitting down with our commerce, secretary and Lutnick, or President Xi and President Trump is actually having a real call or a real meeting. Then you'll know we get somewhere. Until then, everything else is noise, right? So all the lesser nations that have had their tariff pause, like Vietnam, Cambodia, all those places. Again, that's great and all dandy because it kind of at least shores up some aspect of the global commerce market, at least in terms of their venue and their agency, what they provide. But the focus is always going to be China. So until that happens, it's everything else is noise. And y'all give me 1 second. Y'all keep building real quick while I gotta go to the door real quick.
Hey, Chaos, I want you to think about this as well. The one reason why he will never lift the tariffs on China at this moment is because the longer China is in a stalemate with them, the more other third world countries is going to come to the table and say, can we do the production at a cheaper rate and at a better deal, right? And so that's why he isolated them the way he did. If Vietnam already said 0 for 0.
But it's funny, Richard Wolff or all these other experts not talking about, they said tariffs bad, he's going to hurt the economy. And say, wait, if he puts serious truffle on the biggest import, Asia, China, that will open opportunities. They don't talk about these other parts of Asia.
Right. Because I've been to India, I've been to Vietnam, they all have the same type of capabilities. I mean, India, I'm not the biggest fan of, but as far as like other Asian countries, it's all the same capabilities. Why do you think Japan came to the table already in Vietnam? Because it's like, all right, well, they gonna bullshit. Now, listen, I'll be honest with you. Japan is worse than China as far as us actually importing our goods to them. At least China takes something. Japan takes nothing from us, literally, right? But the point he's doing is, especially if he can get the EU on board, it's like, fuck China. If it's like, yo, at the end of the day, if I can get Vietnam to do it or Taiwan to do it, it's the same thing. And it's at a better rate to us. And we're no longer in this deficit. And that's the difference. And that's why he won't do it, because unless, like they say, come to the table on a respectable manner. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. Well, at least I'm knowing something more about this, that what they're not talking about.
Like all of these people you see and it's crazy. It shows you how legacy media is not our friend any longer. Because think about it. You think they don't understand how tariffs work? Let me ask you a question. How come no one on legacy media talk about how Japan tariff you, how China tariff you, how the UK and Brexit tariff you? No one's talking about that, right? So another thing, the reason why I know China have no leverage, you know what they said to the United States during the first day of this whole thing? They said, we're going to take your movies out of our theaters. Who go to the movies? Okay, take Snow White out of your theaters. Booga booga boo. Like, what that's supposed to do?
They ain't gonna do nothing.
Exactly.
They don't make money. America is not known for making the movies like out of Asia, making better quality movies because they got the means, because of the West gave them the tools. So their movie production is much better and much efficient. You know, when I was looking Google about certain movies that came out now, you know how much the budget is on some of their latest movies? Their budget is like under 50 million. While our budget for our movies is over 100 million plus. Did you know that?
About the movie thing? Yeah, that one movie, Snow White, just flopped massively. They put a lot of money in it. It got all
No, but you missed the point. The budget for movies now in America is over 100 million plus.
It's crazy.
Unlike Asia, it's like under that. It's like under 50 million in their currency.
It's crazy, man.
And they've been moving. And listen, they put out the same images, CGI and stuff, for less the fraction than what we pay up here. That's why Marvel is getting the issues they have now, because you're overexpending because the budget to make a film here is too much. You're spending too much money. That's why you hiring back some of these old actors to come back, play these roles to save so you don't go completely bankrupt after make billions of dollars for the last decade. That tells you they're not good at spending at all. We're not good at spending in America at all.
Yeah, we're the land of milk and honey for a reason, the land of decadence and all these things. And again, it's just, you know, a myriad of different things I was saying earlier too before you came on. I don't know how long you've been in the chat or whatever, but again, we've become just oversaturated with a lot of, you know, again, delusions of grandeur as a nation in terms of our spending and again, our government overreaching the budget values. It's just crazy because we've accepted somewhat of the status quo as it is, as a way, like, you know, you don't have a choice. You got to pay to play. But as the saying goes, you know, when things get out of hand, smart people, you know, reveal themselves during hard times, right? You get smart people to come to the table. You get, as they say, the dopes come to the table, and you can kind of figure out, you know, where we went wrong. And this whole trade war, again, just speaks to that, because again, the topic of the day is just that, right? Stock market, tariffs, and the trade war perspective. This is some people will say it's, you know, they only see what they feeling right now. I say it's a necessary evil. At some point, you got to try something different what we've been doing, because what we've been doing is not only is it a form of insanity, it's more of a sinister perspective coming out of government, who's supposed to be, you know, the type of people who have all this access to data information, and then they can make these kind of decisions for the populace in a way that's supposed to benefit everybody. But it seems like they just double down on doing the worst things, right? And the problem just gets exacerbated, right? It gets worse, right? So it's like, at one point, where do we stop the bleeding? Because the equitable outreach as a nation, it just isn't there. Money is only landing in the hands of a few. Now, again, I will say this again, you don't supposed to hate the game, you got to hate the player. But in the grand scheme of the ball of politics, the game actually does matter, because you got to give, if you're taking money from everybody, be it equally or not through tax or whatever, then there's a common, you know, camaraderie that everybody want to see the country win. Well, you would hope. But going back to what Andre was saying earlier too, and I've been sharing this thought for a while, when you have too many other people coming into the country who don't necessarily understand American politics in the way that boots on the ground type of people do, that's a conflict of interest, because they're coming in putting their interests over the collective interest, because they're saying they see America as a money grab. That's essentially what happened. When politicians fold into that mindset too, it gets crazy, because now they're concerned with their lobbyists. They're not concerned with their constituency. So you have everybody double dealing and grifting, and money just getting spent and wasted and whatever. And people who are market participants like us, we're like, we see it, right? We're trained to follow the money. I'm like, you can't look at this stuff objectively and like, man, you know, these people, you know, doing good business, right? They're not. And it's horrible, because when you do have a pause in the status quo, like you're getting now with this whole idea of the tariff and the trade war scenario, which we knew it was coming because Trump, he ran on it, he did. everything dude say he was going to do, he's standing on it. Good, bad, or indifferent, he's standing on every part of a business that he said he was going to run on. Now, you could judge him, now, or you could judge him later. But again, as market people, y'all know how we roll, right? We're not thinking, 3 weeks, 3 months, or whatever. We're thinking long term, regardless. So we're going to look at everything objectively, right? I don't separate. I mean, I separate myself from the idea of looking at his personality. I'm concerned with where is the money? How's the money going to move once we get a little bit more, research in terms of what's going on in terms of his policy perspective. Again, he still has his tax bill that has to come forward, right? I think they voted on it now in the Senate. But again, looking at this stuff objectively, all the stuff that people, out in the street crying about and slobbing all and going crazy about, I'm like, bro, I don't see how that was really benefiting, everybody anyway. You got to be willing to do something different, because whether people want to believe what happened with Doge is real or not, meaning the stuff that they was uncovering, which I don't see how you're going to really fight against it, because they got, the receipts that are there that are obvious that you can backtrack through USA and many other ones. Yeah. It's like, how you going to push back really against that? Like, what is I always tell people, like, give me your best oral argument for why those things are necessary. Go. And it'll be like, you're going to stumble and fumble to make that stuff make sense. Because at the end of the day, I'm paying taxes into America, not into Saudi Arabia, not into Bulgaria, not into, into Mexico. I know they have outreach value in terms of it making commerce better for me if they're using it strictly for policies in those particular jurisdictions that make my life easier or cheaper. That's one thing. But a lot of the other stuff, that stuff was not. That stuff was completely discretionary waste. Prove me wrong. If it was a discretionary waste and outright fraud, literally, I don't know what else to say. Like, dude, we could not stand to have another. In my opinion, again, I don't deal with the politics like that. We could not have stood to have another 4 years of what was happening before this latest transition happened in terms of administration. Good, bad, and different. It's not me even thinking about even Trump. I'm thinking about where the money was going. I'm strictly focused on the money and the money only. It was horrible. So again, I say this here, man. Let them go through this, let this again, it's only been dude got in office, January the 20th. Here it is about to be soon to be April 20th, that what, 3 months? Uh-huh. That's technically one fiscal quarter on the calendar. And he got a minimum of what? A minimum of what? Of 12 quarters before the primary kick in, when in 2026? So he literally have 12 quarters to kind of make something out of his particular policies or his governmental, his administration, so to speak, whatever they're going to do. He has 12 quarters to make that stuff pop off. If we sat through 4 years of what we just came out of in terms of post-COVID and high inflation under Biden now, bro, I'm like, what are we talking about here? I mean, are we serious? Is it just that, again, people still weathering their, political laws on their shoulders still? Because again, I don't get caught up in that. I'm just following the money as I'm supposed to as a market participant. But all I'm saying is, I'm happy my money, my tax dollars is not going to LGBTQ Sesame Street play in Saudi Arabia somewhere.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just being
honest.
honest.
My money that going to foolishness, we all good. Don't send my money to that type of crap. I'm not funding that nonsense. You to get your whole innards cut up, reorganized.
PG. I know you're about to go in. PG.
The innards. Listen, that's as nice.
I know.
This is as nice as we were gonna say YouTube. Now we on Rumble. I would tell you to get your whole dick cut and pussy cut off. But anyway,
hold up, keep it PG. Keep it PG, bro.
Yeah.
Now keep it PG. Keep it PG. At least on that side of things. Right? Because I do have young folk that come through and watch the stuff. But yeah, it's horrible out here, man. It's horrible, man. So again, we've seen this stuff, transpire right in front of us. And again, I'm on the most neutral brother on the planet, man, but I'm not a fool, right? I get why a lot of things are the way they are, why they transformed into what we're dealing with today. Again, talk about the 80-20 rule, right? I'm sure you guys already know what that's about. It's a losing strategy, I think, at this point in the game. Like, you can no longer pull that off like they used to, right? They ran so many plays, meaning the government as a whole. Now I'm just hitting everybody because everybody was eating off a lot of that money. You know, they both sides of the aisle. It's just one side was just a little bit more greedy on their side. But something else has to be better than what we're dealing with, right? The stock market, again, is just it's caught up in the flux of it. But I'm of the mindset, again, if we come from a very baseline thesis, buy low, sell high, I'm not going to complain if this thing reset because people are mad about policy. Until it gets ironed out, let it go through its doing. It's 1 quarter. It's 4 in a whole game. Meaning 1 year, 1 fiscal year is 4 quarters. This is the first quarter of people losing their minds. I'm like, how? Dude, you want to buy at the nosebleed section or you want to buy down at the floor level? You want to buy cheaper at the floor level or you want to pay more for the skybox without, the partitions in it. You buying just, the top level in the whole arena and you want to overpay for that as opposed to getting cheaper floor level seats. That's how you got to look at investing. That's how you got to look at commerce. Now, the trade war gonna mess up a lot of businesses again in terms of their products. I get it, but at some point, the negotiations are gonna come to a head. Why? Because China cannot survive without America. Don't get it twisted. Anybody telling you on the mainstream media that we cut off our nose to spite our face is just because they're wearing their political laws. You got to have something better than what we were having. Why? Because your IP, meaning America's IP, has to be worth more than what China was, what China was doing, at least on that side of the game. It's horrible. It's so much so that it's a national security interest problem on DOD side. That's why they stopped NVIDIA from being able to sell chips to China, because they can use them same chips and outfit their military capability to be a problem for us later if it came down to it. Again, good, bad, and different about it, but you got to look at things from the totality of why things are the way they are. You got 2 big world superpowers competing for what? More control of the global new market. In this case, we call it emerging markets, right? India trying to come online finally trying to get their stuff together. Africa still got to get its mess together. If not, it's going to stay colonized for the next 100 years. You got places like South America, Brazil. They're slowly but surely trying to get their house in order. They want to come online and be at a first world level at some point, right? For lack of better terminology, first world, third world mess. But again, this is how the world works. As an investor, you see all this stuff as is and said, you know what? How can I benefit from this 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You playing the long game finally. When before we was caught up in the day-to-day whipsaw action of politics, news, foolishness, goofiness, bad, players messing up the game for everybody. If you don't know how to put blinders on and separate yourself from that stuff, it'll drive you crazy. That's why it's important that, again, we realize why we're here. And again, if you want to look at stuff objectively and be mature about things, you'll see where we need to course correct. Because a lot of that stuff they were doing, it was just like, bro, they're doing some weird science. They were doing some what was a little weird science, the old school movies back in the 80s. They were doing some Frankenstein mess with taxpayer money and thinking people just gonna sit through that foolishness. Like, dude, what are y'all doing? And then if they double down and do it again and try, at the next election, it's gonna be another L. So anyway, let me get out of politics. I know that, again, that's one of them subjects where people wear their politics in this country. Good, bad, and different to it. I care about the money. Where the money going? All right. At the end of the day, where's the money going? Because that's where the opportunity is at. And this is crazy, man. So as these tariffs unfold, meaning however they come to the table, at the end of the day, don't lose focus, guys. The big boss of all this is China. If you focus on China, what they're doing, you'll be ahead of the game, especially as an investor side of things, right? Because like my brother Ro, he asked earlier about, do we think there's going to be an effective, subsidy, policy implemented under China to help their market? They're going to have to. Why? Because we're putting out a mandate that they're literally our what? Competitive enemy when it comes to commerce. Even though we are symbiotically tied to them, it's still a game where we're trying to compete against them. So they're gonna do their dirty work again, good, bad, indifferent. This is how this stuff's gonna play out, at least on the political side. You just got to be a much more savvy businessman to know how to stick and move, how to, look at your policy, meaning how to look at the policy, the way to buy goods and services, be it direct to market, or you come through an American vendor and pay that double tax. If you can go direct to market, that's the best move. That's what I've been doing all throughout the winter. I was going direct to market to China, Japan, buying products and stuff, especially when the currency for forex exchange rates was all over the place. I was scooping up great deals on products. I was telling over Chris earlier, before everybody came on, I was buying like reeling rods. Y'all know I love fishing. I was buying reeling rods that were like $500-$600 for like $200-$300. I cut out the middleman. I cut out Dick's Sporting Good. I cut off Bass Pro Shop. I cut off all these middlemen in America and went direct to market and bought it straight from the vendors over there. Saved a ton of money. That took me being more savvy and strategic in terms of how I look at the world. If I'm gonna be a market participant, I want to also look at that from a consumer perspective as well. So it's just one of many different ways people need to start opening up their horizons and become more outfitted to deal with commerce on a global level. When you participate in the market, that's what it affords you. It affords you a different optics. You don't look at the world from your little, your town, your city, your state, your country. It's much more bigger than that. And that's how you win in the grand scheme of things. That's how big money, big bank take little bank. That's how, wealthy people are able to kind of mass wealth. And then once it takes off, it just rockets. Once you make a certain amount of money, everything from that point on it feels like, it's like, dude, I've been waiting on this moment. Everything just comes a lot more easier to you because you know how to move a little bit more, fluidly. So I'll say this again, guys. When we're going through this stuff, like everybody, we watching this stuff in real time, get your popcorn. I said that at the beginning of the year. Get your popcorn, get your tea. Don't get caught up in unnecessary conversations and spats with people who are wearing their political foray on their sleeves. Again, I get it. I'm not the person to kind of quiet people or whatever. I let anybody speak. Y'all know me. But when it comes to money, you guys need to realize, man, this at the end of the day, this is what moves the needle. How you feed, clothe, and shelter yourself should be much more important than, again, your political disposition and that alone. I get it. People have their ideologies too, but yeah, man, people at the end of the day, big money, many people don't care about that stuff, man. They don't care about that. They'll watch a civil war fight happen among poor people and still be eating caviar, watching it from 30,000 feet down their private jet, and let y'all burn down your cities and states that y'all directing the energy towards the wrong people. Right? That's why I say always look inward before you make bold statements in terms of if you don't understand how the system works, man. It's horrible. It's horrible. So again, I'm all for it, man. So I enjoy this stuff. So when you're looking at the market again, just kind of using this as a benchmark moment here, guys. This stuff is, man, it's revolutionary. And I say that. I'll go ahead, somebody say something.
No, I said, yep, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's revolutionary, man. Entrepreneurship as a whole is revolutionary. I would say, I even go a step further, I would say it's evolutionary, right? It's a part of your evolving to say, I'm much more greater than, a time clock or, time and a half on somebody's job. You're much more greater than that. You got things that you can really get behind, or things that you want to do that could turn into some kind of form of an income interest accruing, opportunity if you, again, submit yourself in a way where you're going to be open to all kind of ways to get it, in terms of information, so that also helps you, lessen a lot of this political, neediness of waiting on government to provide it for you. And you'll go out there and figure out how to get it yourself. That's the greatest achievement you can have. If that level of autonomy to figure out how to make your own money is something, again, it's such a good feeling, guys. I know I'm speaking to the choir of people on the panel, but for somebody that might come through and watch this video later or just pass through, y'all know what it is. Ain't no better feeling than being able to get your own money. you know, and or have access to the opportunity, because you can still do a 9 to 5 or a skill trade job, that's something that you have a passion for too. But you realize that your diversification comes through the form of saying there's other ways where I can put my money to work while I'm not sitting there watching it every day or having to make it myself. It's working over here. I'm working over here on in another direction. That's what's exciting about this stuff again. And I know these are old, you know, church points that we speak over here in terms of the, you know, the tabernacle of getting to the bag, right? Hold my mule, go long this stock or whatever, right? However you call your particular your church.
Right.
Yeah, but this stuff is fun, guys. We love this stuff, man, for that reason. And again, just being good stewards of opportunity, man. Being good stewards of this stuff. And so SP 500 right now going through its state, you know, its status of, you know, trying to flush this stuff out. The market gonna do what it's gonna do. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And I'm all for it. I'm all for it, man. So again, you guys got questions about the tariffs, y'all want to talk about it, man, the panel is open. You can post your questions in the back chat. That's as well. We got a little bounce in the market right now since we've been talking a little bit. It's still down closing to 3% on the day. It was down a lot worse. But that run from yesterday, guys, all that was just a whole lot of what? You know, hoping. It was a great move. I get it. They did a whole, you know, run on puts and blasted those guys who were waiting for the bottom to fall at the market. And all we did was have a great old school double bottom massive bounce. Yeah. It took some manipulation from the administration. They had to play their part. They did. They pulled it off with their little tweaks and all this stuff. But look at this here on the Ireland. Go ahead, over, Chris.
Yeah, of course. No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. So again, to you again, how do you think this stuff gonna play out here over the next, you know, I would say at least, you know, next couple weeks here? So
they gonna, for one, they gonna come to common ground one way or another. Right now they just playing with numbers. I'm gonna slap you, you gonna slap me back, so forth and so on. But I think Trump really want to get at China. Everybody else, you know, he really just making them come to the table. Like, listen, we got to get rid of this old agreement. That's bull crap. But China, I think he really trying to make an example out of, really. So, but this could go on for a little while, and then, you know, it's like musical chairs. The game got to end at some point.
Yeah. And see, again, people who already was waiting on this to happen, meaning pre the election, once we knew he became, you know, president, for me, it was just like, okay, we know what's coming. We already know what he ran on. No surprises there.
Right.
A lot of people surprised because he actually doing what he said he was going to do. That's where a lot of people are confused. Like, they're not used to presidents doing what they said they was going, what they ran on.
Right.
So it's catching everybody off guard. Like, bro, why is he doing what he says he's going to do? Good, bad, and different about it. He's doing it. Like, he didn't give me a chance to adjust. What you mean he didn't give you time to adjust? He had a whole campaign before he ran.
Yeah.
You didn't get your house in order. You were building your house with wet tissue. And everybody, smart people, were building your house with what? You know, petrified, you know, blocks. And but we're using the blocks they built the pyramids with, bro.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's old. It's man. That's all it is, guys. And so it's just one of those things, man. A lot of people got caught dancing in the street and they weren't prepared.
Right.
You know, so they're wearing this a lot harder than a lot of other people, and it's affecting them, you know, psychologically in a way where they're having to adjust. And again, this nothing to do with me, you know, not being conscious of the people who are losing jobs because they're trimming government and stuff like that. Of course, I'm always sympathetic to those things. I'm a man of the people like everybody else.
Right.
But I will say this again. We were talking about this earlier, man, over Christmas before we went live, that the idea of job security in 2025 is laughable.
Yeah.
Like, that's laughable at this point. We should know better at this point, right? People who've been burnt enough should know how to adjust, course correct. Like, there's no such thing as job security. If the majority of people over the last 6 years, you know, ran to the government because they feel like the government had the greatest, model, business model on the planet, and people that did do that, And now that they're feeling that pain now because this agenda of kind of streamlining government is happening in a very egregious fashion. Again, I get it. I know how you feel about it. But if you put all your eggs in that one basket, and that basket alone, that's bad business.
Yeah.
Government is supposed to
game.
Go ahead, Obi.
That's a dangerous game, boy.
That's a very dangerous game. And man, like people, like your government should not be the sole provider of your GDP growth.
Thanks.
Let me repeat that. Your government should never be the archetype for your GDP growth, meaning how well they outfit their infrastructure over that of the citizenry that they work for. When they become bigger than the citizens, that's a problem.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're dealing with, guys. People don't want to deal with that. That's exactly what we're dealing with. That's what we've been dealing with. It just kept growing, getting worse, getting more, greedy and like, dude, we're paying for people's jobs that are not moving the bottom line in your household. They just another person they add to the payroll to take away more of taxpayer dollars to distract them from doing what they need to be doing with your money. You got satellite agencies on top of satellite agencies on top of satellite agencies, and all of them backdoor dealing and grifting off of taxpayer money.
Yep.
So I'm like, how do you wake up every day and lace your shoes up and say, I'm all for this. This is good. Like if you're comfortable seeing this stuff happen and you comfortable, I'm like, how? So something has to change, man. So we'll see how this unfolds. But again, from a market perspective, it's a reason why my chart look like this. Right? We got lines all over.
Yeah.
I'm counting the money. I'm trying to figure out how to get to the money.
Real
right?
talk.
Man, we can do all the other stuff later, but in the day, man, look, okay. So, this is what we do. This is my part of my profession. I got to speak to this from that vantage point.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm still learning like everybody else too, but I will say, man, look, I have it no other way because I don't ever want to be, in my opinion, I don't want to ever be subjected if I don't have to. I'm going to say that. If I don't have to, I don't want to be subjected to what people are dealing with now down the street here in Washington where I'm at. Right. Them people, man, it's 100% chaos in DC, guys. The DMV as a whole, it's chaotic here, guys. I ain't just saying that in a hyperbole fashion, right? It is complete chaos here. Matter of fact, my brother Quez, he in the area too. He in the DC, the DMV area, you know. So that brother grinding, he man, he's just kicking the market behind, and he's young brother getting to the money, and he realized that now, like, man, his peers don't stand a chance.
I'm trying to get like you, man. I've been trying to get like for the last 9 years.
Man, we in this together, man. You already know how this stuff go, man. We brothers in financial arms, right? And it's just one of those things where it's non-negotiable, in my opinion. Again, this is where I get my hair done at, like Cat Williams say. Learning this stuff is non-negotiable because the alternative is to be, an entrepreneur somewhere,
right?
Or a person with a skill set or trade skill,
especially multiple skills or skill stacking, right? But at first, I realized that I had to have a foundation first and build that first skill set first to piggyback off the other one. Because you on Instagram, right? You go online, you see like. You got somebody that's doing real estate, this person doing e-commerce, this person doing this person trading. And then you get so blinded and knocked off that main skill set to where you could have leveraged that first one to really do whatever you had to do. So, but yeah, definitely getting the skills stacked them up. The market's is non-negotiable at this point.
Again, just being able to feed your aspiration, and having 2 monies and 3 monies and 4 monies is, in my opinion, again, it's just non-negotiable at this point in the game.
Yeah.
It's always a way to get to the bag, man. And you just got to be, hungry. You got to have intent. You got to have purpose, though, because purpose is direction. Now urgency is good, but purpose is more directed.
Yeah.
And the rest is just history, man. So again, this as the church crowd would say, this too shall pass. And I'm not saying in terms of the political perspective, I'm talking about the ideal of the uncertainty in terms of the markets and in terms of things that always work. They'll figure out a way to kind of work this stuff out and figure it out. That's how you need to look at this stuff. In my opinion. Again, I'm speaking from my opinion when I say that. So don't get caught up in the flux of things. Turn off mainstream media if you can. I repeat, turn off mainstream media if you can. Right? The tail live vision is in the business of distorting the truth and hiding the thieves. Don't get caught up in that foolishness. I'm gonna put my 10-4 Kufa hat on to the day I die. Bro, there's more than one way to get good information, guys, and mainstream media is not one of them. I'm just going to say that now. Journalistic integrity is thrown out the window a long time ago. So, again, man, you got to get excited for this. Get the market to get, it gave you a nice little layup, at least the latest one down at 481. We had the so-called, as of now, it's a little double bottom. We'll see if it holds. But again, until this trade war perspective comes in the more proper scope, don't bet on it being the bottom, right? This is a nice bounce as of now. If you bought in somewhere down at bottom, I did. I added a little bit to some positions I trimmed a while back because I was definitely selling the video over 140 and in the 130s. I was selling Tesla over 360. Right, I sold the highs when I went on that big one that ran over 400. I sold somewhere around maybe over 380, but it was a little bit then. But I sold a good little amount around 360. I could have sold a lot higher. Again, Birmingham beat one in the bush. I ain't crying.
Facts.
Yeah, man, that's how the game goes. So so we're in the business of buying high, buying low and selling high, unless you're short selling, right? So yeah, get excited for these opportunities, man. So are there any other stocks you guys want to look at too? Again, I didn't plan on being long, but we can look at some stocks if y'all want, some industries, some ETFs if necessary. Y'all got anything y'all want to speak about or look at? Let me know, guys. And yeah, man, what's going on, Dollar Wheel in the back chat, always holding it down, man. Appreciate that, brother Matthew. I see you in the building as well. Shout out to everybody that might be listening on YouTube side of things. Appreciate you guys being here. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. We enjoy having you here. You said job security waits while you clean out your desk. That's 100% right. Bars. Them bars right there, Dollar Wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Them bars there, man. So, man, it's important, man. Said we so powerful as a people, but yet have no power. That's it, man. We got a game. We got everything we need to move the needle. It's just that we got to get to the, get serious and make it happen, man. So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you, bro. I already know.
Yeah,
man.
What you think about I know Andre told us about this company, this integrated shipping company called Zim. I think they out of Israel.
Yeah, I remember trading Zim a while back, man. I think I got Zim in a couple of my watch lists, and it's one of those one. In fact, let's see if I can pull it up. A lot of that is universal because shipping companies right now finna go through a whole big, shake up too. Clearly, right? You got, we saw what that looked like when we had the supply issues, under COVID. Right. And some of the players in that regard. So you even look at this company here. Matter of fact, let me go to the daily chart here. Let's go to the daily, see what it looks like, at least on that, then we'll go out a little further. But yeah, look at how this thing been chopping around. Look at that. And let's go to weekly now. But again, some people going to be massive recipients of this trade war, if you want to call it that, right? I remember then when it went crazy a while back, inside that 21, 22 area, it broke out too, so another scenario like this, you take this shipping company like, man, because you remember back in the day, we like every year around November, end of October, November, the shipping companies always ran. You remember them old school day dry shipping?
Yep.
Dries and what was the other shipping limited? I think other one was what was the other ticker? That was another one. But I mean, universal though. I mean, this stuff old school. We've been training stuff like that for longest. But things can change now massively because again, we're talking about moving commerce. China obviously being one of the major players of that, because again, they ship so much out. Some of the other players like this, like Zim, if they are, Israeli company, they make a benefit, off this scenario in terms of being an intricate part that America will trust their businesses a little bit over China. A lot of stuff can happen, guys. That's what's so crazy about this stuff. Anything can happen at this point. And look at this stock right here, even on the weekly here, how it just kind of traversed down off 26 down to 12, right? It got cut in half, since November of last year. It's been cut in half, at least at a pivot point where it was, in a long consolidation shelf channel here from 22 all the way over here to where we're at now in 24. It basically went sideways.
Yeah.
It just got back to a place of equilibrium here, and then got cut in half off the whole, recently here. And it's right back down at almost near the lows of where it was, consolidating at around about $9-10 a share. Now it's a little bit over 12. So it's just assets like this here that are worth looking at in terms of they figured out any kind of way to improve their ground game in their business model, to outfit themselves for what's coming through the trade war. How can they leverage it? These type of companies you want to have on your radar, right?
Right.
For a myriad of reasons in terms of, the use case, just what they look like on the chart, because a lot of charts out there look like this, right? Where they, they were just running or they were just lagging because the tech sector got all the shine, right? The Mag 7 and those types, right? So we know you have equitable, outreach in terms of stock market when the small caps run. If the small cap, but the Russells ain't running, which a lot of these companies like this fall underneath.
Yeah.
That's when we know we kind of there. We need these companies like this to kind of eat too. Right. But it's all based upon, small cap. Right. And small cap just been all over the place,
You really have.
Yeah, but it's small cap benefits when you have good governance. Let me repeat that. Small cap works, meaning small businesses work, mom and pop businesses work when you have good governance. You need the government to work and get out the way, stop over-regulating, stop stealing, overtaxing, and let the people, build outfit, the infrastructure of the country.
Yeah.
And you will get companies like Zim and many others that can benefit because they'll be able to kind of get their boots, working in their favor or get their business off the ground. So this is just one of many. So again, looking at the weekly chart here, when we just kind of crest on small caps around 242, and it didn't dump, it's down sitting there, down here in the dumps. So things like this are worth looking at, man. If you look at all the sectors, we know the gluttonous ones like the QQQ, right? We know what this look like. It already snapped back a whole lot.
Yeah.
It can't even stay down. Get down. No. Right?
Gotta pull me back up.
Man, the tech sector, boy, these people wild be savages, boy. They're gonna buy that Meta. They're gonna buy that Microsoft, and they're gonna buy that Nvidia and many others. Boy, they always gonna run the tech.
Every time. Every time.
And so that's why the market's so distorted, because again, that the power of a few are overshadowing the goals and aspirations of the many. And that's just not a good, healthy market. It's not, So, the ideal of a rising tide lift all ships, man, they need to throw that whole thing, they need to throw that playbook in the trash, bro.
Real talk.
That mess it's not conducive of a healthy market. So we're saying these things, and guys, it's just one of many reasons why, we're big proponents of being, patient and not emotional, and realizing how the market works, learning how to get ahead of policy. That's how you really make strong investment decisions. Yeah. When you learn how to use policy at your advantage, like we did under Biden, we knew a lot of his policy, what he was running on, we just outfitted ourselves along the way. We hit up a lot of the healthcare COVID stocks when it was at the bottom before they took off. Energy play, we were just being strategic. Right. That wasn't by happenstance. That was just smart investing.
Right.
Man, again, everybody on this panel can attest to that. They were making smart investment based upon what the policy was going to look like. Whether they got it off the porch or not, stock market ran with it. It's the same way now looking at Trump stuff. If he's a big proponent of industrializing America, meaning industrial stocks that may benefit, metals, certain energy components, be it nuclear, because he's speaking a whole lot about nuclear stocks and stuff like that, and nuclear energy. Hey, let it happen. you know, and whatever else that may come along from his policy. At some point, Wall Street gonna catch that greed bug again. Y'all know it's gonna happen. You can't keep these greedy people from being able to do what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
You think the market's gonna go sideways for the next 4 years? I think not. It can have some ebb and flow, some up and down. It could probably end out halfway. It could possibly, but at some point, no, Wall Street, no, they never gonna miss a good opportunity. All right, they're gonna figure out a way to make things happen. You know, one way or the other, they're gonna figure out how to make these things happen. You know, so again, so don't get caught up in the fray. Again, don't let people take you off, you know, off your grind. It's just one of those things. Look at Bitcoin here. It just went top of the integration band right back down to the base of it. Wicked out below it and snapped back, opening up right at it. See, this man markets are efficient. Look at this on that linear regression chart here on the weekly chart, guys. Like, you couldn't make this up. Look how efficient this is.
Yeah.
Y'all see this here? Efficiency. Efficiency. Efficiency.
No
and,
doubt.
You know what I'm saying? It's a reason why, you know, Larry Fink of BlackRock, you know, he all in on Bitcoin now.
Yeah, he do.
One of the biggest, you know, wealth criminals on the planet. At least his company, well, he's the CEO of it now. When I say his company, I mean, it's a reason why these people run into this stuff.
Oh yeah.
They already know the fiat, you know, fiat game and run its course, man. They look for other ways to diversify. Gold always gonna be, you know, they already know gold already submitted at this point. Ain't no, you know, whatever. You ain't stopping gold.
Right.
No matter how they try to mess that market up and do what they do with that, they ain't stopping gold. So they just trying to find their next gold, right? Look at gold him. Just ripping. Right. This is the spider version of gold, not the comic side, the feature side. But look at that chart, man. Look at this. Patrick got some wheels on it. I can line up it like some wheels, right? Racetrack.
Oh yeah. Great chain biscuit wheels.
Man, I'm talking about Gravy Valley biscuit wheels. Boy, let's go. Look at this move here and go. Again, we're talking about the fall of 2023 here. It based at 169 and ain't look back.
Yeah. Just rip higher, man.
You talking about less than 2 years, it said way up here dating at $300, almost in doubled. This kind of stuff, man. I'm like, well, people, like, bro, you all that. Look at, I'm gonna make a very potent point. Think about all the liquor and the food and the spazzing out and clubbing you did in the fall of 2023. Man, you took at least a portion of that money and put it in the gold. When people say, hey, you store your house up for the winter, man, look. Again, they ain't finna beat Peter Schiff, boy. Peter Schiff got that second wind behind his back now, too, boy. That took a talk with his whole chest.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll tell y'all about gold. See, this is why y'all put about gold. And they would laugh, they be laughing at him on CNBC now. Like, look who's laughing now.
Hey.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you know, he always been a big gold head, man. So
yeah,
he ain't lying, cause you know
that joker eating that boy. He eating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, gold was the play, man. Gold was the play.
Yep. I remember us talking about it when even back here. We were talking about it way back here. That's why I still got these old stuff. And we see stuff like that. I mean, that old thing we didn't discuss. We were like, this thing in a tight consolidation, at some point it's gonna break out. In this case, it went up here, had this little U-shaped bottom, pulled down a little more because we had, you know, political aspect of what's happened with the inflation, but it ain't go too much lower than the base here. You know, it still was in a long consolidation channel, and then it broke out. So this whole area right here was just what they call land of opportunity here in gold. Like, you couldn't make this stuff up, man. This is beautiful. That is a beautiful, beautiful zone there. That's just, if you got a little extra dollar, you just put it, you know, kept adding. And then you just woke up, you know, a couple years later, 2-3 years later, and be like, bro, what happened? Where all this money coming from in my account? Why am I getting all these alerts? You know?
Yeah, gold to me, gold was the one thing I learned from buying gold when I was putting Chris and Mo and them on it, was that it was at 1652 So imagine now I had 4 ounces then. So imagine the money I have now. So think about this. Think about this. Gold for me was a testament to the discipline it takes to stay in the market. Because you can't go out and just spend gold, right? You can't take,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in a bind. Now, mind you, you could sell it and get your money, but you can't go to the store and just say, I'm gonna spend some gold. And so it's one of those things that it's a true hedge because you could say, well, I know it's like real estate. I can't go out and spend real estate, right? But I get it because it's a form of creating a module of wealth. And I think gold was one of the things that taught me how to be patient,
Yeah.
because I was looking at gold more than I was looking at stock. Like, I ain't gonna lie. I was like, damn, up
It's
one
the
cent.
ultimate patient asset. It is.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing that book, even though it might move like a turtle, but the one thing that book says, gold moves in a bear market, right?
Yeah.
And it teaches you,
Ultimate hedge.
yeah, it teaches you how to stay still, you know, stay still and be patient with the ebbs and flows.
And the chart don't lie. As they say, as the saying goes, numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Numbers just don't lie, man, when you're dealing with this stuff, man. I mean, just look at this here and just like who would want a chart like this here?
Patience is the virtue.
Talking about.
Yep.
So this just a combination again of being astute investors, again, having the political, wherewithal, or not political, but the financial wherewithal to look at things objectively again and figure out how to allow your money to work for you. And it don't have to be all at once. Like Andre was saying there, it don't have to be all at once. This is, again, you want this kind of money here. This is like Sunday cooking money here. Let me put it gold in the reference of on the soul food side of things. This is Sunday cooking here. It take all day to cook them, render them greens down and that that old ham hock, right? You can't speed cook that, right? You can't speed cook a homemade macaroni and cheese. Ain't no speed version of that, right? You got to do this stuff from scratch. And it's the same way I say this. It's the penny candy theory. You get a little extra, you put it away for a rainy day, right? This is a savings account, like, bro, like, come on, man. Like, we know this stuff at the point. You should be happy to want to see over time how money interest curation, what it looks like at a methodical level where you don't feel overly stressed about it. Right? When you've heard people make those assessments, say this is how you grow your wealth, you got to be patient and whatever, right? Well, man, but the market is volatility. Every market is not volatile like that, though. And so gold is one of those ones where you see it for what it is. It's been around since forever. It's been around forever.
Yeah, it's well, in general, if people, I said this to Chris and Mo the other week, if people would have listened to us in 2020 during an influx, it was one of the bigger transference of wealth you ever seen. If the average person that was listening to Garfield talk about, and no offense to Garfield, but talk about silly shit in comparison to some real shit, they wouldn't have been in the financial duress, even during massive inflation, right? And that was the thing. Chris heard me say this a lot during that time, and I'll say it again. I don't want to be rich to show off. I want to be rich to be normal in this country. That's just the truth. You're not normal in this country unless you got some fucking money. I don't care what anyone tells you. You've seen that in the last 2.5 years because the one thing they gave illegal migrants was money. Why? They had to normalize them within these borders, right? You can't have them without money.
It wasn't no case study. It was they just cut the check.
Right.
They cut the check without any kind of debate. It wasn't no plebiscite. It was none of that. They just cut the check.
At thousands at a time, number one. And number two, there is absolutely no coincidence that every city that undergird them is on the verge of bankruptcy outside of New York and Boston. And the only reason why Boston isn't bankrupt is because it's a college town where they get so much money from people, you know, coming into Boston College and blah, blah, blah.
It
But
has
they,
great infrastructure. That's 100%.
right,
That's it.
right. But the only thing that kept New York from being on the verge is the tourism and the fact that it's such a robust population.
It's the money
But
center. They figured out
when
how
you
to.
look at
Yep.
when you look at Chicago, Los Angeles, who would ever
Man.
thought Los Angeles on the verge of bankruptcy because of that? But when you look at Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, and Oakland, yo, it is a prime example of why money is the baseline for your existence in this country. All these cities are going bankrupt because they brought in and created a whole new middle class without even having them to work. And I don't think people really understand what that did to these cities' economies, you know? And that's why I want to be rich, because I just want to be normal. That's just the truth.
No, I'm with you, man. And again, and speaking in terms of market turn, because we never miss a good moment to kind of drop some nugget, but that's old school dilution. When they dilute the citizenry, when they dilute your wage power or wage increase power, that's like that means you have to work twice as hard to receive twice as less when you get diluted. Like a stock, when they go through a dilution, when they add more shares to the float, it's gonna take a lot more money to move that stock going forward, because they done took all the the inherent built wealth and spread it out even more so they can pocket them. That's old school dilution. The worst thing that ever happened when you dilute your citizenry for a fringe project, when the people that built and laid bricks to get to a point where we got a surplus to make moves with, or a theoretical surplus to make moves with, and you turn around and take that money and go buy what? Magic beans and not bridges. You got a problem. And that's exactly what America has now, because it's not a coincidence. Again, we ain't just beating up on the Democrat, but we're gonna throw shots at bad governance when we see it. And a lot of it is, a lot of Democrats say that Chicago is a horror show. That mayor, Brandon Johnson.
Also, Tiffany Hayner, the mayor in Dalton.
Dalton, another one. Another what they call them, the city girl, them city girl mayors. Another one that got hit down in Atlanta. I think the cab, another hit, and the one in New Orleans, the black woman down there, they hit. Man, it's sad.
Dang, boy.
It's sad, guys.
So much.
Listen. One of the more disturbing things that I deal with is how they utilized. And now, mind you, I ain't gonna, me and Chris, I'm sorry, y'all, I had to stop myself because I ain't wanted to be on some, because as soon as you tell the truth, then it's a gender war thing. But I will say this: the sad thing about it is they use the females of our community to destroy these cities. It is.
Man, that's another conversation, bro. We're gonna have that conversation one day, man.
That's why I said I can't. That's why I can't.
I know. I'm with you. I know, because we talking stock, but we making a call. Oh, it's okay. We talk correlation without having to say we got to say, but we're gonna have a panel on that one.
But the point that I'm making is this: even with me saying that, it shows you how fractured we are. That you put one of them in any positions of power, and you are literally watching Babylon unfold in front of your eyes. Listen, just think about baseline thought processes, right? So baseline thought processes, you have a woman in Tiffany Henya at the time who couldn't even pay her rent, managing your city's budget.
Yeah.
Just think about that on a baseline
car wash.
Listen, man. Listen.
You're making this up.
Right? And you gotta understand. And listen, let me say this, because this is the truth. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. The one thing that party knows is that its constituency does not care about policy. They care about feeling a certain way. And the reason why I say that is this. One of the things that really disturbed me about Eric Lion Ass Adams, right? When he would say, well, yeah, I don't want them here if they're criminals, but the ones that are asylum seekers, they deserve to be here. Look, if they buy a loaf of bread, they pay into the tax system. And so for him to say that, he's showing you that he feels that you don't understand basic economics, basic politics, because it's your tax dollars that gave them the money to buy the loaf of bread. It wasn't them.
Facts. Which is dilution of your tax revenue going to outfit a whole new, nothing that has, the ROI on that is coming years and years, potential. I'm saying even potential, because they wouldn't even they tried to make like the country was already going to implode unless they brought in all these illegal people.
Yeah.
Like, bro, how we been surviving all this time without these people, and all of a sudden now it's a detriment to our, no, it was the fact that y'all were grifting, taking taxpayer money and gambling it away.
Yeah.
So,
so think about it like this, right? And this goes to how many people are watching you right now? Before I say this, how many people are watching you, African Emporium?
Let me see. Let me go over here now. I think we got a few people. It was a little higher earlier. I think we got about 5 or 6 of them now. It was a little higher earlier. People moving around, during the middle of the day. And we had a decent amount earlier, but yeah.
5th floor. Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna say this right now, so I can say that ain't that many. Listen, the reason why this generation or the next gen, your reparations claim was given away from the years 2022 to last year. Point blank, period. I was deep. I was deep in that political. I was deep in that space. I'm not gonna get how deep I was as far as like going city to city with certain coalitions, freedmen as we call ourselves, working on bills in Massachusetts and certain areas. And your reparations was given away through Chicago, through Denver, through Los Angeles, through New York City, and through what they did in the United States of America from 2022 to, because if you think about it, the one thing I learned from a bird's eye view and being a midget, or basically just saying the spook that sat by the door to an extent, the one thing I learned was this. We used to, whether it be Sandy Darity, who, was a little off, or whether it be certain people that brought up specific numeric values of what we deserved, you notice that it was in the trillions, right? Mm-hmm. Guess how much they gave them? They gave them over $3 trillion within those 2 years, 2 years.
They gave him a blank check when Biden first got in. They put it on escrow. By 2022, he had the ability to spend it, and boy, did he.
So let's show how that ices the cake, right? If whether you believe there's such thing as a debt ceiling or whether you believe in new monetary policy. So let's say if you believe in the debt ceiling, then you're going to hear from the current administration like, how we can't give no one no reparations. What you call
that check? Yep.
Yeah, we are literally on the verge of bankruptcy in the United States. Now, if the other side would have won, the first thing they'd have said was like, "Oh, we got you. We just got to take care of all of the new arrivals first." Right? So think about this. In the state of Oregon, they had a bill. This didn't get out, but in the state of Oregon, which is very blue, very weird, they gave, before Gavin Newsom did it in California, they were giving illegals $30,000 a pop to buy a home. And it was only for them. So
yeah, no one else can qualify. They were doing that, running that play in parts of California too.
Right. Before California, it started in Oregon. And so the thing is that I was telling people, if you have any type of mathematical skills, and we kept saying, well, they owe us at least 10 trillion, and they don't get these people 4 trillion.
Minimum 10
You,
trillion.
yeah, you think you getting what? That see, this is what I told my man yesterday, and I meant this. I said, Black Seed, listen to me. His name is Black Seed. I said, Black Seed, you know why we ain't never gonna get it at this point? I said, close your eyes and ask yourself. I said, I want you to close your eyes and ask yourself, what does the DNC need with Al Sharpton, Roland Martin, Jasmine Crockett, and everybody else? Think about CNN. Think about Abby Phillips' show. Abby Phillips' show, where you got this attractive black woman in Abby Phillips, and then you got a bunch of fat black loud women in Anna Navarro, and then you know what they do? They got the one white man, right, Scott Jennings, with the bow tie on, talking very soft and very stoic. While you got all these
cooking them too.
right?
Oh my goodness.
While you got all these loud black women saying, we fine, we here, we made it, we the most educated, we don't need this. And you got him saying, no, you're not. Why do you think they do that? They're doing it to basically say, y'all good where you at. You got a fat think. Listen, the scariest thing in our politics at this moment, outside of Jasmine Crockett, is the fact that male masculinity within legacy media is represented by fucking Roland Martin and Al Sharpton. Think about how crazy that is, that you don't have not one African Emporium or any man that speaks truth to power on any of these legacy media channels that's a blackface. All of them are effeminate, whether it be Keith Boykins, whether it be Michael Eric Dyson, whether it be Roland Martin, all of them.
One guy that was on MSNBC that lost his show. I know you're talking about. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all of them, all of them. And so what do they all do? They claim, oh, we made it. We're here.
Yeah. And it's nothing against them guys. I'm putting that out there in this thing. It's not about the purge cat. It's about their messaging is not conducive of what Over Andre is speaking about. Of course, he can say that himself. He don't need me to say that, but yeah, they are so tone deaf to what everybody else.
Right. And so that's the point that I'm making by saying all of that. Okay, so they gave them a blank check, and then you got the only people that could actually bring the truth out on media or in front of you, right? Telling, no, we're fine. No, you don't need nothing. You're good. You understand?
Yeah.
You can't, you don't even have a place to start from, because everywhere you look, the optics is saying, oh, they're fine. The Negroes are fine. They're good. Look, we're on TV. You know, we're the most educated. Oh, God.
We got Simone Sanders speaking on behalf of them. What?
Right.
I was like how?
So one thing that made Simone Sanders block me, right? Because ever since she said Joe Biden is on the level of Martin Luther King, I lost my mind.
Man, I would have threw up in my mouth.
But the one thing that made her block me is when she said, when they had the first debate, she said, what's a black job? I don't know what a black job is. But then as soon as this DEI thing crumbled, she said, y'all getting rid of black jobs. I was like, you just say you don't know what it is.
They want the cake and eat it too. They were horrible. They were just horrible. They were just flip-flopping every other day, it seemed like, and it was tragic. And I'm sitting there watching this stuff like, man, these people can't be serious. And I know they really thought they were saying a lot of stuff when they were saying nothing, and thought people were just gonna fall for it. And it was just, I was like, dude, because people started to panic when they got close. I was like, bro, y'all gotta look at this stuff objectively. Don't be confused about them running cover, what they call cinematic cover through mainstream media. Of course, it's always gonna make like their champion is winning and making strides. That's the whole prestidigitation, sleight of hand trick. You know, you gotta not get caught up in that, because real people are boots on the ground, homogenous Americans. People know what's up.
Yeah.
They just gave a microphone to the 1%. The seven, you know, the not even, you know, when I say the 1%, or they use the 20 rule, I keep going back to that. These really people are 7 to 10% of the populace, man. They ain't even that really 1%. But I'm just saying, they gave these people the microphone to speak for hardworking people that, run the swamps of Louisiana and stuff like that. People down there don't care about that goofiness down there. They like, dude, can y'all get these taxes low and can y'all provide me some, less regulation so I can go out there and do my thing?
All right.
It was bad.
What you said, Emporium is on point. But see, what's dangerous about that, it waters down your claim. And that's the whole point of me saying that. You can't look see one of the things that I had to sharpen as far as myself, right? And it wasn't that I lacked it, but I lacked it on a political level, was the ear of discernment. Once you develop that in politics, nothing gets past you. Because the one thing you learn is that they're not good liars on any level. On any level, right? For example, one thing I do, because I stand on the fact that we really are silly as a whole when it comes to our set aside and our specificity within policy, right? So you know what I always do? I talk to white folks, right? And I said to white people, I said, listen, how do you feel with a woman with fake hair and fake eyelashes telling you we're not in the business of sending out money, when Jasmine Crockett said that on ABC, Meet the Press, when she said, we're not in the business of sending, we're not giving you no 5,000. Could you imagine a white woman? Could you imagine a white woman in middle America whose husband is probably working in some type of factory or shift job at night, and she's home watching a black woman with fake hair and fake eyelashes sass you and say, we ain't in the job of giving out money, knowingly that this is the same party that has just given out trillions of dollars to people that have not put no sweat equity into this country.
Make it make sense.
You understand what I'm saying? And so the reason why I say that is the only flaw that, and I've said this to Chris and a few people, the only flaw that I have with Trump is that he's such a troll. Maybe he just don't give a fuck, but he doesn't understand that you don't have media on your side. You need to kind of streamline the message because you don't have media, right? Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because when the DOT stopped the congestion pricing in New York, I was with it. I'm like, yes, right? Stick it to him. But look how he ended the tweet. He said, long live the king. I wish he wouldn't have said that. Why? Because now you're giving them something else to talk about that has nothing to do with what you just did. Now, why am I saying that again? Kathy Hochul, the very next day, goes on, she does a press conference. She says, look, he's knocking off congestion pricing. And then she goes like this. And I want you to listen to me intently to see where I'm going with this. She's like, he want to do it. We're doing it for the kids with asthma. Now, what does that have to do with kids with asthma? I have no idea. Then she goes 32, 30, yeah. Then she goes, it's been 250 years since we served under a monarch, and I'll be damned if we serve under a monarch now. And then her very next sentence was, Emporium? She said, and y'all gonna get this congestion pricing whether you like it or not. So who's the real king? Who's the real king? The one that says, no, you can't do that. That's kind of illegal. Or the woman that says you're gonna get it whether you like it or not.
Make it make sense.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's
Captain Hope is she worse than old girl up there?
Oh yeah, she's worse
in Boston.
She's worse. 100%.
Agreed.
100%. If you want to see how bad she is, look up the prison officers that she just fired because they went on strike. And these men were only striking for one reason, because they wanted to see their families. These men had to work 2 24-hour shifts every week and at least 2 36-hour shifts a month. They didn't got a chance to see their family. The only reason why they were on strike because they were there 75% more than they were at home. And she's like, she just fired them.
Yeah, again, that's the part about the game where I'm like, man, these people, you know, they died on those heels that were unnecessary in terms of these are your nuts and bolts in your city. These type of workers, right? These type of people. Again, when we talk about Teamsters, longshoremen, those union people, and certain, you know, certain people you just don't pick a political fight with to grandstand with. Again, I just my opinion, of course, but they make it so much more harder for themselves when the dust settles. It's like, bro, you gotta, if you trying to run for election again at some point, that's gonna be a big hill to climb. A big hill. So I don't see how it's like the little that one little meme with the Joe the Zoo Man, whatever the guy was. Like, I don't see how I'm gonna ever financially recover from this. Like, I don't see how they're gonna recover from that because they just picked in my opinion, again, they have the ideology, whatever, but they picked the wrong fights. At some point, they got to be some kind of level of bipartisanship, of understanding, meaning the citizenry got to be able to kind of tell these people, hey, this is where we really want to go. We're on the 80 side, you're on the 20. You're going to lose in the grand scheme of things. And that's what a lot of people that now, since the Biden them laws, they are just crashing out massively. And they doubling down, like Jamie Pritzker, governor out there in Illinois, another one, doubling down, crashing out. Like, you couldn't make this stuff up. Like, bro, I don't know how y'all gonna survive. Because your citizens are telling you outright, bro, we are not with you. The majority of the citizenry are telling them they're not with them. And it's the government who are hijacking the citizens and saying, by proxy of us, you're already, you're in this fight with us. Like, no, we're not. Like, dude, we already told you we didn't want this stuff. Like, them citizens in Chicago Red, and told you people, we don't want these people in our neighborhood. And yeah, they just bust loaded them on into their neighborhoods. Like,
yeah,
bro. You got something to say on Chris? Yeah.
No, I'm just agreeing because that's what it was. Brandon, know if Brandon was on here, he'll tell you.
Yeah. That's bad, man. That's bad. And so again, their political, careers, that's what they call a self-inflicted wound. If you ever seen one, that's self-inflicted, bro. That is so self-inflicted.
That's a fact.
I don't see how they're gonna recover from that, but they got their own, they got their marching orders. They died on that sword, listening to I guess their political party, and good luck. That's all I can say.
Good luck.
Boy, so long can't get right. We gonna miss you. Can't get right. Can't get right if I ever seen one.
Facts.
Man. So just one of many things, like I say, I know again, a lot of people have different political views, but y'all know me again. I just deal with the money, man. I deal with the money. I won't be confused. I am not confused. And a lot of people who come through these spaces, y'all, I mean, I know y'all get it, again, good, bad, and different. There's certain things that, you can agree with on both sides, but on things that, again, that, feed, clothing, and shelter your scenario, at least in a way where you feel like, you're being underrepresented, underrepresented to that, you're going to have a problem with that. And I think that's what you're getting now, getting a lot of this blowback, because a lot of people, well, let me say this. After they began to flood the zone with all that stuff, before that, I know for a fact, I don't know nobody outright that was voted for that, because it wasn't a referendum. It wasn't on the table. It wasn't an agenda. They didn't come out and reveal that hand that they was going to do that. Clearly, granted. But after it happened, when the voices began to get real loud and people like, bro, what is this? and people feel like they were doing it in a very lawless way, like with impunity, and they were just breaking constitutional law. They were breaking federal law. They were breaking lower jurisdictional law. They were just breaking all kinds of laws, and people were like, how is this possible? That's when it really began to be turned into resentment. And I was saying that the other night on our live. I said that's when it turned into resentment because we don't have that luxury. They would never give us that luxury. Like if we break the law, we got kids in the car. Guess what? Kids go to child protective services. If you can't call nobody to come pick them up, and you still going to jail.
Right.
What you mean you can't separate an illegal immigrant that hopped your border illegally? How do you mean you can't separate them from their kids and can't put them in jail? Are you what? Like, bro, I'm paying to a system that ain't gonna work for me. Okay, look. They're gonna have a mass crash out in this country. They pull that trash out on a global level.
I want them all gone. Like I tell my friends, I want to see them on the back of the bus with a little girl holding a stuffed doll and a chihuahua all in the same picture.
Bro, you know, people don't, again, I get it, man. People gonna feel some kind of way. I'm like, hey, man, do what you gotta do. But I'm just saying, man, everybody just, they're not gonna, like, mature people, when the mature people step up, you know what it is. Again, they're not gonna sit here and, like, no, you're not gonna just do this to us like this in our faces. You know, it was that kind of thing, you know. And I think that's what really, man, that's what really did those people in, man. Like when I say the people, meaning that DNC crew, man, them guys are just, I don't know what they smoking. They really went there. They, you know, you never go full, you know, crazy like the movie Tropic Thunder. You don't go full R, they say. Hey, they went full, double down everything, you know, and again, their prize fighter, their champion fighter, and Kamala was oof. Again, another conversation right now that I get. I'm gonna move on, Doc. Yeah, Mark can get ready to close the next 30 minutes. But I get it, man. We can have these conversations again later, man. We do a separate panel and get at it, man. Especially if you do it over Andre, let us know, man. I would definitely enjoy being a part of it. And because I think, you know, again, a lot of people, like he was saying earlier too, you know, they drowned out the voice of a lot of people who had a lot of, you know, a very, you know, important viewpoints that needed to be discussed in the interim of them kind of laying their framework of and trying to, you know, shape-shift the narrative in a way, because that's basically what they were doing. They were shape-shifting the narrative and putting the onus of their policies at the behest and the responsibility of people they didn't give a mic to see how they, you know, viewed things. They just championed it and said, we said it and you're gonna have to ride with it. These things are more important than, you know, what's on your, you know, your agenda, your mind. Like their policies they were running on for us, which we know what they are. I ain't gotta repeat them. And it's like, dude, like y'all gotta be kidding me. Y'all saying this with a straight face and y'all think, you know, everybody's on board with this? And then they got so bold to say that, you know, no, we good, bro. We look, not only are we confident in this, but we're gonna mop the whole country blue. And the total opposite happened. they got mopped completely red. It was over before it even began.
Thanks.
Man, Mo Joker was in the bed by 1 o'clock. They called that election before Mo Joker had no time to take a shower and go to bed. And get up the next day and not be stressed out tomorrow on what the numbers look like. Like, no, Joker took a whole bath, had a whole meal, enjoyed their spouses, and went off to bed.
Everything.
That was a fancy game ever.
Listen, and they still, and I'm not speaking for African Emporium, I'm not speaking for Chris, but listen, they said she got 70+ million votes. I'm letting you guys know, if all you need to do, go over the electoral college map in each county of each state, you'll realize that 30 million, I'm going to be honest with you. If I had to give you a round number of how many votes she got, it was probably 35 million. They say 70. because they manufacture. Let me show you something. Okay, I'm gonna show you something. Anyone that understands statistics understands there's something called standard deviation, or basically margin of error. So let me show y'all something. So they said they were waiting to call Pennsylvania, but at 11:30 that night, they said 90% of Pennsylvania's in. He's up by 200,000 votes. We're just waiting for Philadelphia County. So here's the problem. In statistics, how do you know that Philadelphia County, if 90% is in, how do you know that Philadelphia County is going to be enough to sway Pennsylvania in her favor when he's already up 200,000 votes? You understand where I'm coming from? Now, earlier that day, they had said that they had a very low turnout. They were saying that on CNN. We had a very low early turnout in Philadelphia for her. They were already panicking. So why would you wait till 1 a.m. to call Pennsylvania when you know good and goddamn well she had been lost Pennsylvania? Now, why am I saying this? When you look at where I'm from in New Jersey, you got Essex County, Passaic County, Hudson County, and Bergen. 70% of New Jersey's population lies within those 4 counties in northern Jersey, right? Then you got Rutgers, which is, I think that's Edison, but you got Rutgers and, Rutgers College, where you got a high population, dense population in that area because it's a college town. But the rest of that is rural New Jersey. And if 80%,
Warren,
right, right. So if 80% of those 4 counties voted for him, how did she win by 1 million votes?
Yeah, they sure had her, up by about 1 million. And I was like, I saw that too. I was like, because I was like, man, again, I get Camden, Black, Trenton.
But Camden was heavy him. Don't forget the 2 rallies he held in South Jersey. Brought out damn near 300,000 people on his behalf. Camden was heavy him, right? So how did she win by 1 million votes when the 80% of New Jersey's population voted for him within those 4 counties? How? Think about this. Look at the California county map. 80% of it is red. How did he lose California? Think about that.
He beat him up he definitely beat him up on the
popular vote.
On the popular vote. Yeah. And then the county votes were massive, So again, it what it showed was not necessarily the whole truth in terms of even some of the stuff that she, supposedly picked up, right? It didn't really tell the whole story, or at least the mandate of what people were really, pushing. Or what they wanted, I should say that. It's just crazy. Because look at it, he won San Bernardino.
Yes.
Like he won stuff like that, Riverside. Riverside is definitely, some black folk down there too now. There's some black folk in Riverside, so you don't get it twisted. It ain't all just other stuff. So yeah, he won Imperial, Riverside, San Bernardino, Kern. Of course, Los Angeles just, man, throw that away, but you can't really.
I guarantee you he won Los Angeles if they would have played that shit fair. Guarantee you.
Yeah.
Because listen.
It's definitely possible, yeah.
All you got to do, think about the example I gave you of Pennsylvania. Now I'm going to show you something. Think about the example I gave you with New Jersey. Now, I'm going to show you what really made me look back in retrospect and how I came up with this understanding.
He won.
If you think about Virginia, she came out the gate with 100,000 vote lead when I think they counted one of those super blue counties in Virginia. She came out the gate. She had an 80 percentage point lead. Then they counted
a lot of it in my area, because I'm in that whole, man, you talking about
then they counted all of the red counties. He was up by 135,000 votes. And they said, I think they were I forgot. I don't know if it was Chesapeake was the first county that they counted when she was up or the last county. But the thing was, he was up by 135,000 votes, right? And then they counted the last blue county in Virginia to call it for her. How did she win over 100,000 votes when he was up 135 when they were just counting one county? It is statistically impossible. That mean that's what, a 7-point swing off of one county?
Yeah.
And you're telling me everybody in that one county is voting for one specific person? Impossible.
Yeah, it was a lot of, whatever. And that's weird too, because to hear that them even suggested that it happened on his side more so when we already know they were gonna try to run a play for her anyway. like they did with Biden, basically, let's be honest. It was just funny, man. I was like, "Ooh, this is crazy. These people finna crash out." I knew. I was like, after I saw what was going on, I was like, "Yeah, I'm done for the night. I'm gonna let them fight." But yeah, like Virginia was like a whole, because I don't know if y'all can see my screen, man. Ain't nowhere in the world the majority of the populace just, they say, because we know Richmond, Black Town, whatever, but that was up for debate. Virginia Beach, parts of Norfolk, they're going to tell me that Richmond, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach alone carried the hose. And then,
exactly.
Everything else is red, like super red.
You understand where I'm coming from now? That's what I'm telling you.
That fact, all intent, of course, we know it was a liberal stronghold because all the immigrants here. But outside of that, man, it was just a lot of states look like this.
That's what I'm telling you. I give her 30 million out of the 70 some plus million. I give her 30. They literally manufacture that. Listen, that's how much you understand that they were really putting balls to the walls to turn that election. She probably got 30 million votes, bro. I'm just keeping it a buck.
Yeah, Georgia was very surprised. They were mad about Georgia. They couldn't believe that she lost Georgia. Georgia was 1-1 where they was like, ain't no way. And she got washed in Georgia. And they still to this day they trying to figure out how that is, because Georgia one of them strongholds where they feel like that the megapolis of Atlanta is supposed to be the benchmark, and they just automatically by default make every Black person a Democrat, which in itself is just horrible. But they can no longer do that because a lot of people then delineated from that goofiness of of a Democratic brand and brand alone. Like, that day is over. I'm so happy for that. Regardless if you're a Democrat or not, there's one thing you hate is one just kind of give you a false label without your say so. That's the worst thing ever. And now that again, that has been decoupled and debunked. It's a new day, and they still gonna try to push it, but we already know, like, people, they have no more political sway over just setting the narrative outright as a default, without bringing people on to kind of really, give it that. So the old talking head, the old talking guard, the gatekeeper, class, they're done, man. Those guys, they're the ones that's cooked. That's why they're the loudest. They're the maddest right now. That's why you know who they are. We ain't got to say it, in terms of the shark them type and the rolling them type, man. They so outdated now, and they shipped themselves. They got their last little grift bag, their last election, and after that, it's drying up out there for it. It's dry. Mm-hmm. Hit dog will holler. They mad. They can't get their little talking points off. It's getting drowned off by the grassroots media and the real new Black media. It's drowning them out. So they just go to show you, man, people are taking back their own autonomy and their own sovereignty in a way where before, again, journalistic integrity has been thrown out the door a long time ago, and special interests have taken over the narrative, and on both sides. Again, that's why you had the Civil War side, the Republicans that under the Bush, the last Bush before Trump, came in. Right, you had to remember that it was the Tea Party and then the Rhinos. They had a civil war. That was an in-house civil war. And guess who's going through the civil war right now? The Democrats. Them far lefts, which is progressives, and then there's center the right folk. They having a whole civil war right now. People like James Carville, he lighting them up. He's like, who these young people that y'all done put up over my? And so they having a whole, let them go through that. The Bill Mayer, them types, they crashing out left and right. Don Lemon trying to get his talking points off, no more heater, and made himself even extra irrelevant. So they having a whole, and I'm just like, yep, I'm all for the smoke. I got tea, I got crumpets, I got popcorn, I got beignets, I got cannolis from New York. I got everybody's favorite dessert or past down snack. I'm just watching them unfold, bro. I'm like, yep. I'm just gonna make sure I do my part, do what I've been doing, nose to ground as a market participant, because something got to be better than what we were dealing with, and I think they know that at this point that if they keep trying to double down, they're gonna magnify their loss the next time. And it's just crazy, listening to people get off their talking points about why they think it went the way it was. It's like, no, it's pretty obvious. You guys chose fringe policy, and the numbers just don't lie. You can't smooth over those lies, right? That was a swoon type election, right? It wasn't even as much as they tried to, it was never close. It was never close. They can say what they want, they can huff and puff, and they can distort the data and the numbers and say this. People, it's like when people say they got their 6 cents kick in, you can feel stuff. Right? That 6 cents, that X-Man sent physical power to everyone they got. You can feel it. Like when they open up the first poll you got around about 9 o'clock, you could just feel it like, yeah, this right here finna go real bad for Sister Girl. Sister Girl finna take a whole lot of, like, they tried to get out the gate, tried to get all excited for. I'm like, bro, that's when you know you lose. The loudest in the room is always the what? The one that's uncertain. So it was just obvious, man. It was like, yeah, there's a lot of people to crash out tonight. And boy, as the night went on, boy, TikTok and YouTube were full of people crashing out, crying, yelling, popping pistols. It was crazy, but I was like, this is crazy. And so like I said, we're here to see things get better one with the other, but it's not stopping us, again, at the end of the day, in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, at least on our side. We enjoy a good dip buy if that to be the case. We just want the policy to mirror that of good commerce, whether it do or not, we still in the making and seeing it happen. I'm patient. Again, I'm not for or against the particular, the individual. I'm for the value of what that looks like on a country perspective, in terms of lessening the pain and the regulation where people can get out there and make moves. Right. My strength is in the power of the people, and seeing what they can do with, less, distraction or distortion. That basically what government does. It's a distraction, it's a distortion. It has its place. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it doesn't have its place, but it had too much overreach, and the overreach became corrupt, malignant, and cancerous, for lack of a better way of saying it. But that's just what it was, man. It was just too much of people. Everybody was just stealing left and right. You had whole people just walking out the front door with bags of money, bags of taxpayer money, and you couldn't even make this stuff up. We were watching it and like, they can't be serious, and they were 100% serious about everything they was doing. They were very intentional. I think Under was saying that earlier. They were very intentional what they were doing. Yeah. Policies and what, how they were just putting it in your face and saying, hey, we're gonna do this and ain't nothing you can do about it. So I'm like, okay, all right. So yep, if you want to say that and then say, well, you know what? Well, guess what? Your 401ks are up, but everybody don't have a 401k. Right?
Yeah, I remember Chris. I remember Chris posted an article where it said I think 3 out of every 4 Americans either withdrew 80% or don't even have a 401k.
Yeah.
So what are they talking about? Oh, every time that the sky is falling, it's just like, y'all are silly, man. Yeah. You know how many people I was arguing about the stock market this last week? I said, how many stocks you own? None. Then what are you talking about? I said, you're literally complaining about me arguing about a stock market that I don't have any skin in. Is like me complaining about African Emporium's the brakes on his truck that I never went in, nor that I've ever driven. And it's his truck. Like, what? You don't own my truck. Well, yeah, I know, but the sky is falling. Yo, it is simply rudimentary, childish ways of thinking. Childish ways. And like you said, they were intentional. I am in no way, shape, or form a fan of Bill Maher, but he did an interview. I think it was in let's say September of last year, where he said to Nancy Pelosi, "What is this thing with Gavin Newsom talking about 150,000 for illegals to get a house?" And then she goes, "I don't know nothing about it," which is a lie because at the time she's the leader of the DNC, and Gavin Newsom is her nephew. He says the policy that they're trying to vote in for the undocumented to get 150,000 grants to buy homes. And he said, "Isn't that anti-American?" She's like, "No, I just think she said it's the American dream." He says, "But they're undocumented." She said, "Well, the plan is to make them documented." That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole chance. There's a lot of sound bites came out where they just came out and basically told you what the play was. They caught old girl, what name? The Presley girl, the one lady, the senator. What name? Ayanna Presley, something like that. I forgot her name. I think that's her. When she had that sound bite.
Yeah, Ayanna Presley, when she said she want to censor the people.
Yeah, she want to censor the people. Yeah, that wasn't a Freudian slip.
I was like, what the?
It was not a Freudian slip.
Boy.
With their whole chest. That's conviction. When people get caught saying stuff like that, she was saying that in the thicket of delivering, a somewhat of a, how can I describe it? She was in the midst of really outfitting the ideal of what they were having, their disdain for how they took their L. And so she's trying to rally her base, and in the midst of that, she pretty much came out and said what the agenda has always been and what they've always done. They got a track record of doing that. They had a track record of doing that. And again, it just, the talking point becomes so surreal that it gets hard-coded in their brain, and then they talk in their brain, in their lexicon, and it'll just come out. Because that's what they kept reading it and seeing it and hearing it. They marching orders, and they just came out and just told the truth. So I was like, you know what? When people tell you who they are, believe them. These are not Freudian slips. These are not, one-off moments. Like, no, you don't. I mean, it was just obvious with the WikiLeaks papers. It was just obvious what was going on and how this was unfolding anyway. But like, they are the part. They became the part of censorship. That's why it was a big campaign and movement around that. And people used it against them because they were the ones championing all that. It came out under Biden, what they were doing. Like, this is like, dude. And y'all talking about democracy? Y'all had a whole court cases against your opponents to keep them from having doggone debate during the campaign. Y'all sit the courts on your opponents. Like this is like, I was dying laughing. Like, this is man. Like this, and people were sitting there chilling that goofing. I'm like, oh man, these people got it. They got it bad.
For all the stuff they was doing, they still lost. Crazy.
I mean, they tried everything they could.
Yeah.
They was censoring, silencing in their opponents. It was just horrible, man. Why I say, man, like, you had to be, really drinking the Kool-Aid to disregard all the stuff you were seeing and hearing and act like you weren't seeing and hearing what you were seeing, what was happening, or not, aware of what was happening. It was just that bad. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay. Yeah, this is interesting here. Like, dude,
Well, the simple fact that you had a court case over a business transaction that no one got hurt from and no one got harmed from, and you got Letitia James, who wanted to seize over $500 million of assets from a man where the bank said, no, we got paid. And they talk about because he overvalued Mar-a-Lago? It's like everyone overvalues. Listen, that was the most asinine shit I've ever seen in my life.
That was that whole Egyptian overreach.
Right. For us.
But did you hear the stuff on her? They got some on her now.
Yeah, she's a
They got some real
slumlord.
estate fraud on her. She
Yeah,
underrepresented her units in her building.
Yep.
exactly.
I thought that bitch was there. I was like, God, dog. Oh, breaking news: the helicopter that crashed in NYPD Hudson. Some helicopter crashed in the Hudson.
Got him.
I didn't mean to throw y'all off, but I just saw that pop up.
Nah, and that, but so you got that. Then you got Alvin Bragg, who literally you talking about he's a 35-time felon. If any of you guys read the transcripts of the case, these people call him a 34-time or whatever how many time felon because he took money and told someone who was trying to extort him, get lost. What?
Yeah, Stormy Daniels. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's Chris. He didn't have any type of physical reaction with the person. The story goes as this. This is how the story goes. She comes to a campaign event. She basically she couldn't get nowhere near him. So she basically tells his people, I'm going to go to the public and talk about what it's almost like, you know, like what happened with Russell Simmons a few years ago, where all these women came out of nowhere and said,
in Bali.
Right.
Yeah.
They put too much pressure on Russell.
Right. So she basically was saying, oh, a certain time ago, you did this to me, you did that to me. And I guess someone came back to him, was like, yo, do you know this person? He was like, give her a few dollars and tell her shut up. Like, that's all. He didn't even know who she was. And you talking about he's a 34-time felon. It's like, do you understand what happened? He don't even like, yo.
They kept trying to double down on that play. And it got so much it didn't hit right where they wanted to, because the idea of a felon now in terms of American optics is tantamount to just a misdemeanor. Like, bro, don't nobody care about that. Because most everybody, all the esteemed celebrities that got caught and ended up becoming felons, like, you couldn't no longer use that as a way to try to demoralize anybody, because it was like, bro, that junk don't even hit right now. Like, nobody care about that goofiness no more.
Right.
With the message y'all was covering up under the Epstein list, and the majority of them were Democrats.
Fact.
Yo, and you know what? You know what that made me?
Epstein list was Democrats.
You know what that made me think of?
Democrats.
I'm gonna tell you what that made me, and let me tell you what made me look deeper into that case. Once again, I am no fan of Nick Cannon. I think he's a lame. I think he's a lot of things. But one thing Nick said, which is true, he said, when you live in Hollywood or you're a celebrity or you're a man that everyone knows you have money, he said you get sued once a week. He said, I keep a lawyer just to write random small. He says, and when you think about what he said and you look at this Trump case, that's what it was. It was almost like, you're going to hold this man in court for Stormy Daniels when he didn't even have internet. Why do you think they brought his campaign? They said think about what they said. He misappropriated campaign funds in a hush money to tell her to go shut up, get lost. And I'm in court for that? Yo, come on, man. It just shows you they threw everything but the goddamn kitchen sink. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. It was all again. This is not me putting on the cake for Buddy, because we know who he is. At the end of the day, regardless of how they portray him and this, that, and the third. But in the political, sphere of mudslinging, if you come up against your opponent and you using the underhand tactics to gain notoriety and political sobriety as you the moral authority, and you have and your house ain't cleaned up, it's gonna look very bad if you crash out and lose. Or at least the optics again of the American citizen who's smart enough to see through the bull crap. They already knew what you were trying to do. It's gonna make that person that much more famous now. That Gilla making a person a martyr now is evolutionarily, in my opinion, like right now, like, dude, you don't want to go down that road unless you got all your stuff together, because you're gonna make this person famous. And they're gonna build a following that's gonna surround them and give them the infrastructure they need to distort all the talking points and lies that you try to swing on them now. Like you can it ain't even worth it at this point. And that's why they stuck now, because they don't know how to read the room. They don't know how to read the room. Like the people like The View and all of the people like that, man, they don't know how to read the room. And they get on there and talk to a small little echo chamber, and it's just failing miserably. And I'm just saying, man, I watch this stuff. Again, I know we kind of off the beaten cover of it, but it's just a part of understanding how to read, check the pulse of the people. Because the pulse of the people are going to determine whether or not, exactly if they're comfortable with the status quo. Again, when I say the 80-20%, 80-20%, the 80% of people, or some of the people who may kind of fell off because they don't like the way the tariff stuff going, even with Trump, this, that, and the third, all that stuff goes away, again, if their gas prices go down, for the most part. And then groceries get cheaper, because people really want results. And the Democrats just was not giving results, bro. They gave you a whole lot of smoke and mirror and window dressing.
Always remember, African Emporium, the most rudimentary mind, which is most of us politically, only understand two things: they purse and protection. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they understand. That's it. Their purse and protection.
And it's that simple. And at the end of the day, again, as the saying goes, when it's complicated, it might be some lies mixed in there. If you can make things simple and give it to people straight, no chasing, man. These people are well equipped to be able to handle all kind of stuff now, because they're not that they got in terms of really, outright governmental secrecy that you can't find yourself now in the age of information. So they really ain't got no big clout, right? Because again, in the day, people on the other side of the planet ain't really making a conscious choice or decision to really come at us. So outside of that, again, that's the security side of things. Unless you turn it inwardly in-house and you have self-inflicted stuff like we dealt with the people crossing the border. Now you brought in all these people who have been vetted, dealers and rapists and terrorists, and you can't account for that. You let them loose in your society, and people dealing with these people on day-to-day basis. Like, who are these people?
Right.
That's when you're gonna have a problem. And it became that, with that. So they dug themselves in the hole by trying to run cover for these people that they didn't vet. Like, that's bad. That's like you turning on your whole family when they've been trying to warn you about a bad, girlfriend or boyfriend, and you just kept, y'all know what y'all talking about. Nuh-uh. And then when the person do you in, and then and it, like, bro, that's bad. That's bad. That's exactly what we was dealing with. They treated us like, this was some hardcore in-house domestic violence. They went straight Ike Turner on the citizens. Meaning, not the dump on Ike, but y'all know what I'm saying. They went hard body on everybody, man, and they thought people just gonna sit there and take that, and it's like, bro, good luck, that's all I'm saying, good luck. That's all I kept saying to people that was like running down, and like, I'm like, man, I'm on the couch, I'm on the couch anyway. I ain't got no dog in this fight
at all.
And the way it's looking though, it look like y'all finna take a major L because of this, and because of that. I'm outlining just basic things like this is why the Democrats finna take a major L. No, you got it wrong. Like, no, y'all got to read the room, man. Don't get caught in this little box. Get out that box and look at this stuff objectively, right? This is why they're gonna take a L. And I kept, like, hey, posting on things to let people know this is why I'm going this way. I wing. Don't get it confused. Because they weaponized the system against them. People don't like that. Number one, they kept giving old girl fake accolades that didn't deserve, and have no credibility of deserving. They crashed out on that, and just like the rest is just like, bro, y'all can't manufacture enough at this point. Game is over. Over with. So again, I just, but I say this again, guys, just, when you're looking at this market, man, the market is an extension of a lot of things that are just, that have been very, ambiguous, if you will. And a lot of this stuff now is coming to a head, meaning people are becoming more astute in how to look at things objectively, how to get to the money, how to, again, if it's just market analysis, we're seeing things for what it is, because we understand now how policy shape the provisions of how to invest long term, because you don't want to be caught up in this old short-term erratic volatility, which is necessarily not the best investment thesis to run with anyway. If you think of short term, then you should not be thinking holding money for long term. So you already should be sitting on the sideline regardless if you want to, kind of, pay to play. So you need to look at everything you do around you objectively going forward. Why? Because it's just prudent. Separate your emotions from the scenario and make good strategic decisions when it comes to getting to the bag. These investment vehicles are just that for a reason. And keep in mind, anytime you invest in a company, asset, anything, just know this: you're not the only one. You're not the only one. Your money feeds the pool. So don't think that you're the one controlling the sentiment of the stock. So that number one should take away a lot of that angst that you may be dealing with, the angst that you're dealing with. That's just how this stuff works. So where you may be kind of not feel like it ain't going the way you want to go, it's because the sentiment of others may be having a different perspective. That means you might be on the 20 side of the 80s winning route. That's all it is. Or you're either too early or you may sometimes be a little too late. But nonetheless, you still, if it's a good investment vehicle, you still on time, even though you might have made it slip too early. But guess what? You also have the power to what? Start over. Right? There's no written rule. Once you enter an asset, you can't turn around and resell it and get you a better position. You may have to take a little smaller L in the interim, but we call that over here what? Paying what? Tuition. Right? You pay a little tuition, you gain a little bit more knowledge, and you do better the next time around. Right? So again, get excited for learning these things and being proficient at it, because it's going to benefit you. It's going to benefit you a lot better than government can. Hint, hint, wink, wink, shots fired. Right? The government can never do what you can do in terms of yourself, for yourself. Right? So don't let these people govern your whole ideology, the way you move, how you spend your bread, how you get to the bag. Don't let that ever be a case if you can have anything to do with it. Right? Because it'll drive you mad, man. As people sit around and just get caught up in that stuff all day. And I'm like, dude, how you got time to do anything else if you worrying about that stuff? Like, unless you got old money on autopilot, I don't see how you can do it. Right?
At all.
I'm talking about they got that cruise control money, bro. I'm like, you must be, because the real people out here making real moves. They ain't got time for all that.
Right.
So that's what they want. They want you caught up in the circus. I'm like, nope. I'm gonna go focus on something else.
I'm good.
Yeah, man. So again, I'm excited, man. Every time we can, come on and speak truth to power, be it our truth, be it power for us, doesn't matter. We're just speaking from what we see. So again, take everything we say as a grain of salt. Go back test it. That's all I say. Go fact check it. Go back test it. If it seems to be different than what you're seeing, then I would say move on it in that perspective. But but as we see it, as I see it, speaking for myself, definitely too. But I know the gentlemen on here, these guys are solid in their prowess, man. These guys ain't these ain't no lazy thinkers here. These are solid brothers, business owners, and and shakers and movers. So again, checking the pulse of the people, man, is just a part of what we do. You guys as well in the chat, y'all know what it is, man. We're not confused, man. We're not. If you doing this, what we do in terms of investment trading, most times, 9 times out of 10, you're not confused what goes on around. The market teaches you how to be objective, right, and not subjective. We're matter of fact, let me put it go a little step further. The market is so anti-government that it ain't even funny.
Right.
We are here to use the government before they use us. That's the best way I can put it.
Simple and plain.
Right? We're trying to use them before they get us. We're gonna run the play on them before they run the play on us. And that's just because your money already feed it anyway. That your tax dollars are feeding it. Yep. It feeds the treasury, that would turn around, feeds the Fed, and the city administration turn around and feed their agenda off of your money. And you ain't got no say so in the matter. Because I'm gonna ask the question again before I get out of here. Did anybody in the back chat or even on the panel, did any of y'all vote for us to give money to Ukraine? Did y'all vote to give tax dollars to illegal immigrants? Did y'all vote to put them up in 5-star hotels and feed them and clothe them and shelter them and give them food stamps? Did any of y'all vote for that?
Nope.
I'm just asking for a friend. Because last I checked, that was not on the ballot. if they put that stuff on the ballot straightforward and then they put it on the floor, they like to say that a lot when they had these little filibuster. Put it on the floor then. Put it up for vote. Look, if they would put that on the ballot, man, Joker did a drive by at them polling station. Man would have been drive-bys all around the country. Like, man, y'all gotta be kidding us. Like, y'all can't be serious. Y'all, we voting to allow legal immigrants to flood your zone. You gonna vote? How you gonna vote on that? Man, look, all right. There'll be so many people hooking and catching fades at the polling place. Y'all gotta be kidding, man. This must be a gag, a joke, a prank. Y'all better stop. So again, I'm just saying, man, we objective thinkers over here, man. I live for it. I'm sure y'all do as well, guys. I hope y'all gain something from these bills, man. I know it seems like we talk about a whole lot of different things in the interim of having discussion, but that's what shapes the market. Again, there's a market for everything, guys.
Yep.
Everything. Let's think about that. They even invented a whole other platform in terms of poly market that does just that. It checks the post of people and you can bet against it. You know what I'm saying? Or bet with it. So you got to enjoy that, guys. So again, when you are up against information that seems to be unfounded and unsubstantiated, man, question it, man. Do your research. Don't just fall for it, man. Don't let people sell you nothing, man. Don't let people sell you tulips. And so get excited for that. Yeah, I hope you gain something from every time we go live. I hope it benefits you guys, man. If you have questions, guys, come through, hang out with us, build with us. We do this stuff because we enjoy sharing with the people too. And I know it's gonna come out sometime for some people who may disagree. That's fine. We do it all in love and in respect, because we're never going to profess that we know it all or that it's our way or no way. All we're saying is be objective, and it's okay to have differences too. In the same breath, it's okay to that's fine. That's fine, right? But just don't let it affect your money. That's all we care about. Don't let it affect your ability to gain resources. Rightfully so. So that's all I got, guys. So Open Chris, any last words for the family, man? I mean, again, you the perfect person to speak to this stuff, man, because you're a brother who's showing, leading by example, man. So before we ain't even got to roll out your credentials, you're just making it happen. And so you got to post. You got to post to the people. You can definitely give people game too. So
never
man.
stop learning. Act like you know nothing, and stay diligent, man. Because it's just, you have to just be aware of the society that you stay in, and if you don't, you don't always be the fool. That's just the reality of it. That's how they get people to react mostly all the time. That's why people be crashing out, because they don't understand where they're at and what this is. But when you do, you don't get emotional. You use your reason and your logic, and you try to make a profit off all of this stuff. Come on, man.
Resolute.
Yeah. It's really, what you say all the time, playing left to look right. Do your due diligence. All the little quotables.
Yeah. We got so many t-shirt moments, man. We'll flood the market if we ever got serious about that. Look at those real quotes, man. And they are none. They are so neutral and right and exact that it's not even funny, man. That's just basis of life. They're old new school proverbs.
Yeah.
In a modern era. That's all they are, with our little twist to it. But they just based upon the reality of things. So
discipline equals dollars.
Discipline equals dollars all day, every day. Find me a scenario where it's not, and make me a fool. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Power equals profit.
A fool and his money will soon part way, right? We just updated that through our own little way of saying it,
Right. Peace, power, and profit. That's a life lesson right there.
Man, tell me about it, man. Again, universal things, man.
Yeah. So man, just get your skills up. Take the opportunities when we come on here, when we sharing our information and knowledge that we have. Take it and grab it. Put your own spin on it, and hit the ground running. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, that's it, man. So again, we're stewards of trying to be better and do better. So again, we don't know it all. So again, we always say that. But again, we welcome everybody to come on and build, share that knowledge, gain, let's go all gain together, and so don't hesitate. When you see us go live, come on, guys. We got the panel open. Come on, discuss it, man. Let's talk about it. I know sometimes we mix, real world with market stuff sometimes, but I always tell people, when you see people in these Discord rooms and chat, they will always ask me, man, why y'all be bringing politics into it? Because guess what? The market is shaped off of policy. Yep. It's money that attached to policy. So that's why sometimes it comes out that way. Some people just go take it next level, granted. But at the end of the day, it's still, that's what it is. We sit around waiting on tweets and headlines for a reason. Is that not politics?
Yep.
The market hinges on these things for a reason. So you can't separate the two, is my point. So when you see people make those kind of searches and comments, you got to take it with a grain of salt. They don't understand the totality of what this is all about.
Right.
And you can't just drown that out just because, you don't want to deal with it because it may be personal to you. But in the day, that's what dictate the money. That's what dictate liquidity,
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason why he tweeted literally buy the market early yesterday morning. And then turned out, he came out and did his whole press that he was going to do that what? Put a pause, 90-day pause on everybody else and raise the tariffs on China. And the market went what? Through the roof. It was $1 million worth of game on the table yesterday based upon a political what? Political posturing from the government. How much what it was? Oh, you could took a what? $1,000 and turned to $1 million yesterday?
Yeah.
1,000 turned into $1 million yesterday.
Based off that one move.
Matter of fact, let me show that real quick before I get out of here. That's gonna be the last thing I'm gonna show before I get out of here. Let me show y'all this here. Joker don't want magic and Joker to playing around over Chris. They don't hear you.
Yeah, they don't want it, man.
They don't want to deal with that smoke, man. They don't want to deal with that smoke. I'm like, bro, like we can't make it any more plain than it's just like at this point in the game, like, dude, I'm like, man, that's why I always say, man, the opportunity is there. It's just up to people. It's up to people. And I don't see how one would look at this and be like, like, no, that's just no, that's no, but I'm not, man. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to break it down real quick, over before we get out of here, just because you definitely put the work in on the post. So
yeah, so basically, it was I really got it from somebody I follow on Twitter that I follow heavy. But listen, basically, if you had $1,000 yesterday during that intraday move, if you had bought in call options.
Mm-hmm.
Man, hey, turning it to 1.4 mil in that time frame. I think in 4 hours.
Yeah, because the tweet came out around about. Gosh, I want to say it came out around about what 11, 12 or somewhere around there, give or take.
Yeah, because the market was down at first. It was down at first.
Oh yeah, I was eating. I wrote the put and it caught me a reverse call. I bought. Look. I didn't even post my game yesterday. I was too busy, doing that.
Yeah.
I caught two calls at 9:58. They cost me 67 cents a piece. In this case, $67, $67 a piece.
Yeah.
I bought the 529 call. That's when the market was sitting at around about 484, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It was somewhere around there. They cost me, I only bought two. That's how mad I am. I bought two. That cost me $134 for them two contracts. I sold one of them over a little bit over $500, and the other one made over like $1,300 plus.
Yeah.
And they still, and I sold that one too early.
Printing, baby.
The other one went as high as like $3,000 plus dollars. $67 was worth $3,000.
That's what I'm saying. What's the
and I sold premature.
A little something strange for a piece of change.
A little something strange for a piece, and y'all know I love them type of trades. I sit around all day building case studies around them trades to show people it can happen. Not that I'm trying to teach people to do that. It's just that there's more. It's ways you can play the market and not feel like you got to be stressed and put up all this upfront capital to benefit off the market. And
Right.
that's the only reason why I do this stuff. I've been doing it for years. Y'all know me for that. It
Right.
was crazy, Chris. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. Because even right here, they talking about the 521 strikes yesterday, and they were trading at a penny before
The
all
low
of this.
was 1 cent.
1 cent.
And it cashed out at $1,400 a contract. Bro, I'm just, again, it's the idea like people like, well, that's phenomenal. That's a one in a lifetime moment. Guess what? That's the market.
Yeah.
You want me to get mad about it? What you want me to be down and say, man, no, that's the market. That's why we always say what? Stay ready so you don't have to worry about what?
Get ready.
Bro, what else you want us to say?
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
This stuff is not a joke, man. This is serious. Somebody yesterday ain't got a trade for the next 2 years.
Man, I can pull receipts, but I just didn't do it because I don't want we used to do that back in the old days. We started doing that for the reason that we like, what? Most people who are around us already know what it is, so we don't have to tell nobody what's going on because our people are already familiar. But for people who just come through, that kind of breathe through, don't understand the stuff, work, just catching on the whim, they'll watch the playback and be like, well, how's that possible? Oh, that's gambling. That's stuff. They don't understand the nuts and bolts behind it. That's why we have these conversations, because we have to explain to them the importance of why this stuff is the way it is.
Right.
It's where all the wealth of the world is created. It's not created on the factory line. Nah, I'm sorry, guys. It is not. These derivatives, these assets, it's created through this stuff.
That's why I'm saying, Pokemon, bro, stop it.
Stop it. That portfolio, bro. Bro, you done bought that whole dude catalog and a lot of his buddies catalog in one.
Right. The whole
catalog. What you doing? You put a Michael Jackson mode. You bought the whole Sony catalog. Their greatest rapper, favorite rapper, they bought his whole catalog, bro. Here, I got it. Look. Big bank, take little bank. What are they talking about?
Bank, take little bank, man.
Yeah, so that's all we're saying, guys. That's why I always say, man, we're excited for just waking up for the opportunity, because guess what? Entrepreneurs of the world, they understand this like night and day. They're not sitting there fighting this. They're not fighting against this here. Only people who are not convinced that they have the wherewithal to make these kind of moves because they think they're looking at it from a wrong perspective, they box themselves out of opportunity. And because that, it stifles their ability to have what they call natural organic growth by using the tools and resources they have at their disposal to work on their behalf. That's all this is.
Yep.
That's all it is, guys. Be it a 5-second trade, a 5-minute trade, a 50-minute trade, a 5-hour trade, or a week trade, a 5 month. Y'all go see where I'm going. 5-year. Look, this is how you make money.
Yep.
Everybody want to quote Buffett until it's time to play Buffett.
Facts.
Right? Even people
exactly.
They'll tell you who Warren Buffett is, but they ain't got no skin. Like, bro, he done told you the blueprint. Go enact it. Don't use him as a sound bite. Take his word. Take him up on his word. Go get it. Get invested. Put money away.
Right.
So again, I'm just, that's just what I don't know what else to say. But again, we talking about massive money here, guys. Yeah, and I'm happy to say that I missed it at the way that I know I could have got it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't have no problem with that. I ain't lose no sleep last night because guess what?
We made that us
a nice bag, a couple $1,000s and change, and I only had to pay, or near a couple $1,000s and change, and I only had to put up $134.
And who gonna trip off that?
Who gonna trip on that? If I put up 134 and I make dang near $1,900 and change off 134, man, all right, stop playing.
Yeah.
And I sold too early, and I had a chance to swing it. Right, but it obviously wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Even if I hit it all the way to the very end, which I didn't, I sold it a lot earlier than even when it went up to like $550. It was just like,
because you bought puts and calls. You had puts and
I
calls.
wrote the puts in the morning and reversed it, went in the calls when it on the breakout.
Yeah. See. Made money both ways. So
both ways. Same way today. I took the short today, wrote it down, made again fishing money. Made a little bit over $300+ on the put.
yeah,
Turned around, caught me some little cheap little calls on the bottom of the head against the upside move. In this case, the market off bottom of fire. Just to have some irons in the fire for tomorrow.
right.
So it's just that watching, and it's all just keep. I'm just playing with house money every day. I'm just house money, and I've just been pulling money out the market. I've been pulling so much profit out, and I'm like, man, look, I'm gonna put look. Every day I'm gonna pull $300, $400, $500 out, in profit and rent, watch, and repeat, and keep doing that.
I'm just like, man, y'all tripping. You know what I'm saying? Y'all be going to work and y'all getting taxed. He over here making money, going up one way, then coming down, go back up, go down. We still making money.
Both ways.
Man,
we get both sides of the. We get to fill the plate and clean the plate.
yeah, like a buffet, boy. Ooh.
And instead of revolving line, he's steady in the line.
Yeah, facts.
Revolving profit. That's the best way to put it. That's revolving profit. We got revolving lines of credit. No, I got revolving lines of profit. Revolving line of profit.
Facts. I think Mo made some money too.
Yeah, I saw she posted. Yeah, she caught some puts early and got a bag.
Just like, man, y'all
gotta love this stuff, man.
Lucrative. I'm talking about something that's really lucrative, y'all. Really lucrative.
Yeah, y'all need to screenshot. If y'all watch it, follow YouTube later on. If y'all watch the playback, man, screenshot what I got up on the screen right now, man, and go back and test it and say, this is why, man, why am I? So guess what? When we say a penny, because y'all know in the world of auction, that means times 100. So that contract was worth $1.
Yeah. $1.
$1.
100 shares, which is one contract for $1.
And again, if you imagine you had bought 1,000, had put 1,000, ooh, boy.
Man, we going to Sizzlers, and they don't exist.
I'm onto my flaming wheel, boy. I'm trying to do it all pipe hollering, boy. Get out the man. And again, I'm not mad at all because again, I got me some other pie. Could have made a ton.
Yeah.
Easily could have made a ton if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And interim of that, but I was doing other stuff and busy and making moves like anybody else, and I already had cemented my little self, hit my little daily goal, and I was just got me a little extra on top.
Hey, that's
my little daily goal. I keep the same daily goal, $500 a day if I can.
That's what it is.
Extra, gravy on the top.
As long as I get a win, I make some money. I'm good with that, man.
That's really the baseline goal. I put goals, but my baseline goal in the day is not to lose money.
Yeah.
It's to make money. So if it's $100, 50, if it's 200, 300, 1,000 plus, couple grand, so be it. To me, a win is a win. And when you don't lose money in a day when you probably could have lost money because the market all over the place and you break even, that's a win.
Yes. That's a win.
My brother the other day, because he was going through and it's like he went up, he was up in profit and came back down and it went back and he ended up breaking even because he didn't want to do it the volatility. I said, guess what? You just got to win.
Yeah, you didn't lose money.
You didn't lose no money. And you gain actionable intel in terms of volatility.
That's a dub. Anytime you break even, that's a dub. Shoot.
Right. So y'all know what it is, guys, man. We're excited for this stuff, man. I hope y'all gain something from these little conversations and bills, man. It just, again, a lot of you guys already know what it is, so I know we kind of speak it to the church as opposed to a lot of people that may come through don't understand it. But man, y'all know what it is, man. Don't keep yourself, hungry, keep yourself humble, keep your ear to the ground, even if you ain't doing this at an everyday level. Because y'all know what it is. You just want to stay in the know. Information is free, knowledge is free. If you know how to source it, you know what I'm saying? That's all it is. So again, with that being said, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we're gonna catch y'all guys on the next one, guys.
All right, y'all. Peace.